As much as life has changed over the last year, you're still pretty busy. So consider convenient COVID-19 testing from Quest. Get the same tests hospitals use without a doctor visit. Simply order online, select from drive-through or at-home options, and get results sent securely to your phone or computer. It's a great fit for your busy life. With over 25 million COVID-19 tests processed, you can count on Quest. So order your test today at questcovid19.com.
Once upon a time in a convenience store, a woman asked, "Which zero-calorie drink will I like more?" The cashier said, "I have a thought. Coke Zero Sugar always hits the spot." The taste made her heart fill with laughter, and with her Coke Zero Sugar, she lived happily ever after. Coca-Cola Zero Sugar, unbelievably delicious.
No trip to the store is complete without the unbelievably delicious zero-calorie taste of Coke Zero Sugar. Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.
What's up, everyone? Freddie the Pizza Man here, host of the Pizza Man podcast. Now joining forces with ChristopherMedia.net. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, the Pizza Man podcast. And, of course, find all the podcasts on ChristopherMedia.net. We talk Detroit sports. I bring on guests, passions, opinions, all for Detroit sports and more. We even talk pizza. So thanks for tuning in and spread the word.
From Asthma Core Studios near Detroit, Michigan, it's Unregimented.
Gangsters, what's up, guys?
And now, here are your hosts.
Welcome to Unregimented number 239. I'm Chris.
I'm Aaron.
I'm Rich.
I'm Todd. Hi.
Oh boy. So, let's just get it.
Only Nixon can go to China. Only Trump can go to North Korea.
He is a horrible negotiator. Can you believe this shit? North Korea doesn't seem to be agreeing to give up anything. I mean, all we have is their word and that they are dismantling their nuclear program, which I don't know how, it's countless times that they've said that before.
Yeah, I was going to say their word is rather do, if I might say so myself. Hey, you know what? Winning. We're making America great again, folks. It's all that matters, right? That's all I hear.
Well, before you shit on it completely, he did come out the next day and say, hey, if he doesn't keep his word, we're not stopping those war games.
Sure. But, well, first of all, he already got his photo op, right? He got his acceptance into the big leagues, the big league of world leaders. He's considered an equal with the American president. That's most of what he wanted, and you can't take that back.
What did Trump want? What did Trump want out of all this, though? How does this? Give me the theatrical script here as far as Trump goes. What's the point of this? Is it to legitimize Trump?
No, I think it just seems like something. It's something that he can negotiate that nobody else was able to, right?
That's something he can say that he did that no other president did.
Trump's spin on everything is like he's always got the better way to do it. That's why he walked away from the Iran deal and then tries to make a deal with North Korea, even though I don't know what this deal is going to look like with North Korea, but if it's going to have any teeth at all, it's going to involve a lot of the things that were involved with the Iran deal. Monitoring of sites, limiting of facilities, and how they can process uranium and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
so it doesn't. I mean, on paper, it doesn't make sense. First of all, how can you go into a negotiation with another country right after walking away from a similar agreement with Iran? And also, what is the point behind his actions other than his own self-aggrandizement?
Well, it's got to be. I mean, I understand it from North Korea's standpoint. I mean, they've been, struggling to find world stage legitimacy for years. They've been isolated, and I understand it from that point of view. From Trump's point of view, though, I think you have to look at this through, as I said, the theatrics prism. The public relations prism, trying to build up some sort of stature and respectability, even just plasticized as far as his administration goes. Nobody takes him seriously. Nobody on the world stage, and half the people in this country don't take him seriously. This sounds to me and smells to me like something that's been engineered between the two. They had the little secret meeting. Somebody hopped on a plane, went over there, some diplomat, I forget who it was, and sat down, and basically it sounds like they put together an improv show. We can do this, and we can do this, and then you'll be legitimized, and then President Trump will be legitimized. All we have to do is put on a show. You're right. What are the details here? What's the meat? What's the actual tangible result that's coming from all of this?
Right. And that's why all the prior presidents, none of them have sat down with the North Korean leaders, because they send their, whoever the representatives out to negotiate the terms, and it always ends up falling apart. So they go, okay, well then there's no point in our president meeting your president.
Right. Yeah. And it's one of those things where they both are seen sort of similarly outside of Trumplandia.
Right.
Right. They're both seen as ridiculous symbol figures for their country, figureheads for their country. They were just absolutely ludicrous excuses for leadership, right? So the two of them get together and legitimize each other. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. I'm glad that we're not having conversations about nuclear war with North Korea and this and that. I mean, that's nice, but where's the meat here?
Well, it doesn't help that he goes, oh, well, if they suspend further pursuit of their nuclear program, we'll stop the quote-unquote war games that we're playing over there. But didn't he say a few weeks ago that those are just too expensive to continue anyways? So if you were planning on putting it on the chopping block as is...
That's true. I've forgotten about that.
Yeah.
Like, he is the worst salesman in the world. The first rule of sales is say your pitch and shut the fuck up. The next person to speak loses.
No,
and he just keeps talking.
I think that's why Trump sees this as a win, because like you're saying, this is somebody that he can relate to on a certain level. I think that a big part of Trump's problem is that he feels like the other world leaders are not taking him seriously.
Yeah, he's finding he's building an ally, a coalition of the batshit.
Right.
He can't sit down with Merkel. He can't sit down with the UK or France or whoever else. I mean, he had a meeting with the Prime Minister from France. I think that's what they call it. Is it a French Prime Minister? Yeah, and it went terribly. Look at what happened with Trudeau. He sits down with him, a G7 meeting, and he can't even get through that without turning it into some hair-pulling fight. So what does he have to do? He's got to go find somebody that he can relate to. He's ostracized by the rest of the world. So what can he do? He's got to go to the most batshit leader, the one who's closest to where he is on the world stage, and create a sort of a partnership with this nut job. Because he's a nut job. He's seen as a nut job. He needs friends.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that makes sense to me.
The one ability he has that I don't think he gets credit for, if credit's the right word, is he is amazing at talking shit to world leaders who usually don't play that game and dragging them down to his level to the point where they feel the need to talk shit.
Right.
And then he goes, see, I won. They're just as petty as anybody else. Look at him.
Well, a lot of that is due to the position he's in. I mean, I don't think you can effectively ignore the president of the United States. If he was president of, Guatemala, and he was acting like that, nobody would even bother. But you can't do that with the U.S. We're too strong, too powerful, and too much of an influence.
Isn't he the perfect president for our country right now? It's just all about winning.
Yes.
And again, I always come back to me and you, Todd, seem to be on the same page with this. We built this monster.
He's a reflection of us. I've said that a number of times. The media and politics doesn't drive us; it reflects us, and I think he's a perfect reflection of who and where we are.
Well, that's scary then, because this last week was really scary. We've kind of been talking about the North Korea thing as in isolation of its own event, but this was right on the tail of the G7, where he went into it saying that he doesn't understand why Russia isn't involved, right? He wants Russia to be involved in these decisions with world leaders, shuns the most of them at the meetings, and then goes to have this this North Korean summit and comes back and talks about how much Kim Jong-un loves his people, what a strong leader he is.
Bizarre, isn't it?
Like you're right, Chris. He has some moments where he's talking strong about it, like, you know, if they're not going to hold up their end of the deal, we're not going to hold up ours. But he has glowing things to say about the leader of North Korea in the same week that he's talking shit about the Canadian Prime Minister.
Yeah, and he's turned into Putin's biggest PR guy across the board since the election. Now, you can say what you want about the collusion and the Russian interference and all that stuff, but you can't deny that every opportunity he gets, he advocates for Russia. And he's doing the same thing in some sense with North Korea. Why is that?
Well, Russia who has been an ally at one time when they were able to, was propping up North Korea, has been speaking out against these what they call war games on the border of North Korea. You know, that's what Trump is looking to give up. Mm-hmm. Is these I forget what they actually refer to them as, but you know, they're just military exercises, I think is the phrase.
Yeah.
And North Korea, every time they happen, this is when North Korea starts acting up, making threats, talking really big about their arsenal and blah, blah, blah. And Russia talks about, you know, the unfair oppression of America and South Korea. So,
the answer really got for you, Todd, is maybe it's keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Yeah, that is something.
That's all I got.
Yeah, but that
doesn't make any sense.
guys,
instead like fuck my friends. Let me make friends with my enemies.
I think we're thinking, we're overthinking it so hard we're shooting right past it. You just have to look at his track record with people. No matter how much he insults them, if they turn around and kiss his ass, he starts singing their praises. And who knows what was said between those two? Maybe little Kim fucking kissed his ass and he was like, oh, well, that's all I needed. Thank you. And so he loves his people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's done it to people in his own administration. He's done it to his political opponents. He's done it to his critics. Anybody who dares question him, who dares even, let alone speak ill of him, he goes, 0 to 100, just scorched earth policy attack. And the minute that they say anything kind about him, he's back to singing their praises. I mean,
I get where you come from. I'm more concerned, though, about North Korea is considered a Russian ally, right? Yeah. They're friendly, they're friends, North Korea, China, Russia. And, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that was like the largest communist country outside of Russia.
I don't want
the USSR.
I don't want to get into at least not for the moment anyway, I don't want to get into the speculative Russia collusion thing, but how does this play in? How does this play into Putin's advantage? Is there any way that you guys can see that this is doing the Russians a favor? Because we can speculate and everything about this and the mechanics and the details of a possible collusion, but I'm really a big fan of looking at people's actions. Mm-hmm. If he didn't collude, is he acting like he did or they did?
Honestly, yeah, you don't really have a good option here. Either he actively colluded or he is being manipulated, right? Yeah, there's no other option.
This is the most damning evidence, in my opinion anyway, because it's his actions. It's not speculation, it's not secondhand, anecdotes or anything like that. It's how he's behaving while he's in office. And if him normalizing, basically, there's that word again, him normalizing North Korea and Kim Jong-un, if that benefits Putin somehow and benefits that sort of alliance that he has with North Korea, elevating them on the world stage, I mean, that to me, if we can't see an advantage to this from our standpoint, yet there is an advantage from the Russian standpoint and viewpoint, that to me is one of the most damning pieces of circumstantial evidence of collusion that I can think of.
Yeah. I mean, there is still the advantage of possible denuclearization.
Yeah.
But I agree. If
it's suspicious,
he's the puppet.
I know where you're coming from, Rich. I'm with you there, but boy, it just the actions and the results and the effects of all this.
No, but that's a good point though, because I think we get too stuck in trying to pick apart who this person is, and at the end of the day, my favorite phrase for unregimented, Trump is just Trump, right? He's just his actions. Who cares what his thoughts are?
Right.
Ultimately.
And that's the one thing. I mean, Trump is wildly inconsistent. Like you were just saying, Rich. I mean, he'll say one thing, he'll smack somebody upside the head. They say something nice about him, and he'll just go on a crazy Ivan off in the other direction, right?
Well, yeah.
But this
Aren't we a year removed from Fire and Fury, and now they're having a summit?
You're right. But this is the one area where he has been just brutally consistent is advocating for Russia, acting in their best interest. It goes all the way back to Crimea, goes back to the Ukraine in the campaign, inserting language into the Republican platform that favored Russia as far as Ukraine went. This is the whole Manafort conspiracy thing. If you go and check that out, that was the one thing he demanded when he was running the campaign. And they got that inserted into the Republican National Committee platform in the campaign, was that they were going to take a lighter hand, re Ukraine. But that's the one thing that he has been just almost dogmatically consistent on, with the exception of a couple of phrases here and there where he has to talk tough. He has always acted in Putin's interest. So let's look at, I'm not as well versed. I'm not swimming in news channel media these days. But where is it? How is this a favorable development for Putin?
Because it goes back to what I said, coupled with the fact that Trump has burned so many bridges trying to get propped up with loans in this country, that he went over to Russia before he ever fucking announced he was running for president and was borrowing money from them. And once again, you do him a solid, he's going to sing your fucking praises. I think the scariest thing about Trump is that, I just remember a quote I was told when I was younger: no one's more afraid of being ripped off than a thief. Mm-hmm. And I think too many people with agendas, because they have agendas and agendas behind agendas, and they play games, and they have 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different faces they show depending on who's in front of them, they assume he's that way too. I think that the quote that Alan Moore gave years ago, that the world is rudderless and it's chaotic, applies to Trump. I think he is rudderless. I think he is straight up chaos. I don't think there's some master plan behind any of his shit. Now, that's not saying that he's dumb. He's obviously not. He has the intelligence or the wisdom to excel, to get where he's at. He knows how to play a crowd.
Yeah.
Well, he's got a certain kind of street smarts, but he doesn't have an intelligence, like a self-awareness type. But see,
that's all. Once again,
that's why he's so easily manipulated.
Aaron, we do this every week. Window dressing on. We're arguing about window dressing in a house on fire. It does not matter. The point is that he was able to bullshit enough people to go, I'm going to vote for fucking Donald Trump. Someone who has absolutely no experience.
Dismiss him. You cannot dismiss him as stupid. You don't get in that position. I don't care if you agree with him. I don't care what his motivation is, even if it's just generalized chaos, as Chris says, or as Aaron says. Even if it's that, he has a level of genius within that. It's ridiculous to dismiss the man for everything he's done, right or wrong, successful, unsuccessful, whatever, the position he's in. You can't dismiss that. He has something.
Dumb people just don't fall into the presidency.
No.
And Todd, to answer your question about how does this benefit Putin, you guys looked at a map lately? Russia and North Korea both border China.
Yeah.
Could this be something something to align against China?
One other counterpoint I wanted to make to you, Rich, as far as the chaos analysis, as far as he goes, just one quick thing. I agree with you, and again, you're right about that, with one exception, and that is the consistency with which he acts in Putin's interest. There is very little chaos there.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
that's a straight road.
I think that he's working in Putin's interest. He's being manipulated by him.
Well, that's kind of where I'm going. I can't say that for sure. I don't know that for sure, but he sure as fuck acting like he is.
Well, it keeps the heat off of Putin. We're so busy paying attention to this dancing monkey who's our president that we're really not really. We speak of Russia as this collective, like the last starving person in Russia is somehow in on this shit, and that's the way it's presented to us because we can't think in nuanced terms enough to go. No, it's a few people at the top of the pyramid in that country that propped him up financially. That he, once again, anyone who helps him,
right?
Anyone who helps him is his buddy. Anyone who speaks well of him is his buddy. And he's acting like such a fool that Putin's over there like, Crimea? That was just the beginning. Mm-hmm. Who the fuck am I going to invade next? And it'll be done in the 24-hour news cycle in the U.S. because this idiot will say something to take everyone's mind off it. He'll, instead of grabbing by the pussy, he'll say throat fuck him or something. Something will come up. You never know with him. And I mean, if you want to get away with doing dirt, the best thing you can have is a bunch of idiots around you drawing attention away from yourself.
And a bunch of idiots distractible enough to fall for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Squirrel.
I mean, it's just like this shit with the FBI with him. It comes out that if I got my facts straight, forgive me because I was trying to read up on this earlier today and listen to a few different news sources, but it comes out that that they were actually investigating Hillary?
Well, no, we've talked about that. I mean, that you're not gonna sway them either way. He's Jesus now.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So he's set up perfect situations to just go. I mean, the whole fake news, alternative facts.
It's brilliant.
That is the first thing a totalitarian government does when they move in is to completely discredit the press because that's the only thing that can keep an eye on them and, in theory at least, keep politicians honest. Now I don't believe that.
Well, it goes both ways. It's not just him that's doing that. I mean, you don't have anybody, very few people that are left now that will look at the news objectively. And say, okay, does this make sense? Does this seem right? And very, very few outlets that actually present an objective viewpoint on fact either. So, I mean, I get where it was the very first thing he did when he announced his candidacy. He started attacking the press and the fake news thing came out, right? But it's sort of a bilateral. I mean, you can never get somebody who, say, was a Bernie bro or a hardcore Hillary supporter that would ever listen to anything critical of the candidate or the Democrats either. Because, you got an agenda, you're a conservative. So it automatically dismisses and discounts any sort of criticism of their own tribe.
This isn't anything new either. I mean, we've seen it with look at people like Michael Jackson, look at people like
it's all over. Yeah.
Bill Cosby, O.J. Simpson, who is Beretta? Whoever Beretta was, I can't remember his name. These people's fans go, no, nothing you tell me. I'm never going to be convinced they did any of this. I don't care about the mountain of evidence. We've just never had it on this level. Even with Clinton, even the most diehard Clinton supporter I knew was like, oh yeah, he got a blowjob up under the desk from that intern.
Right.
Even before it was, he came out and was like, I'm sorry, I lied. We all knew he was getting head up under that desk, period. Yeah. Yeah. And they had no problem admitting it. The only retort they had to that was, who gives a shit? What does that have to do with anything? That's between him, his wife, and that intern.
JFK was banging Marilyn while he was president.
And that was one of many.
Yeah. He's my hero.
His team photo's an aerial shot, okay? Yeah. I mean, that's just all there is to it. So, but it's so frustrating because every time I listen to a news report, every time I read an article, every time we talk about this, I'm just thinking, anyone who's listening to any of these things, not just us, but just any of these reports, reading these articles, they've already made up their mind.
Right.
And all they're doing is looking for points in the article to back up their beliefs or points in the article to attack. They've completely shut their mind to any chance that they might be in the wrong and that new information will come along and enlighten them.
And they don't seek it out either. And they only surround themselves with the people who will reinforce that. You know, anybody who sort of invades that echo chamber, that little sealed little room, is going to be kicked out, going to be ridiculed, attacked, and kicked out of the collective. People only surround themselves with what they want to hear and what they believe, quote unquote, believe. And that's the problem. And again, it's. I'm not going to run down the social media road again, but this is the main mechanism for that because you can do it now. You don't have to go to a meeting. You don't have to go to a meeting
yourself.
You do not have to go to a meeting. You do not have to go to church. You don't have to go anywhere but sit on your smelly ass, sweaty couch and surround yourself with like-thinking people. And pretty soon it goes from, facts to beliefs to a matter of a question of good versus evil, right versus wrong, the Patriots versus the Auslanders, and that's the problem. That's where we've gotten. And that's how we got Trump.
That's how we're going to get him again, too.
Yeah.
I started watching Wild Wild Country, the documentary series on Netflix. Have you guys seen this?
Of Rajneesh?
Yes. I highly recommend it because it shows us just how little anything has changed. I mean, I know it wasn't that long ago. This was like 80s or I think around 80 when they started coming to America and building a town here. But yeah, all the same fears and the conflicts, they're all still there. And the only thing different is now we have social media, so everybody would be talking about this shit.
Well, yeah, it's amplified. That's a megaphone for this shit now.
Well, who's the actress from was it Smallville who got caught up in some cult?
Oh, what's this?
I know, dude. She's so cute too.
Something.
That's a shame. She's a freak, and not in a good way.
But I mean,
no, she's a freak in the good way too. If you've read some of the shit she was doing,
she is soldier. She's down for whatever in the bedroom, but unfortunately, from what I've heard and read, I'm just like, once again, even in the age of social media, even in the age of everything, if you dig hard enough, you can find information on it. It's still not a huge story. It's not like the front of the, pop culture mindset. It's not like, everybody's talking about it. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, that, some of these cults wouldn't have prospered as much as they did and ducked the light as much as they did in the age of social media. But if you really want to, it's possible. That's the fucked up part. I mean,
Scientology's still around.
Well, no. I mean, there was. I'd recommend watching it, but there's a lot of news footage. I mean, people were following this at the time. That's why I was kind of shocked that I had never heard the story before. I mean, I was only, a tiny kid. I was born in 1975. So, but this stuff went all the way up until like mid 80s, and I had never heard of any of this shit. But apparently, it was on the news because they have Tom Brokaw talking about it. They have footage of it.
What are you talking about again?
But Wild Wild Country, the Rajneesh cult, I guess people refer to them as.
Yeah, I'm not.
But it's really interesting just as a kind of societal study because. There's the way that this group of people viewed themselves, and there's the way that the outsiders viewed them, and just the way that everything escalates. I don't know. I don't want to get into it because I don't want to spoil it for anyone who's like wanting to watch it. But
yeah, it reminds me of the Jonestown thing, about the same era as well. I mean, you look at that and look how it escalated. You've got people killing their kids with Kool-Aid at some point.
But Jonestown is a little more cut and dry because this guy, I mean, who's to say? But when you look at footage and hear the story about this Rajneesh guy who started this religion, there's no other side to him apparently. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'm only getting part of the story. But he seems to honestly believe all this shit, he's as full of shit as anybody else preaching any kind of religion, in my opinion, but he's not really pushing it on people. He's not. He's not enriching himself on the side in the way that many leaders do. I mean, Jim Jones was a Christian who was just a fucking crazy egomaniac, and when he found himself at the end of the road, he wanted to take everyone with him.
Right. David Koresh kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, there's another documentary that's on Netflix called Holy Hell that sounds like, from the way you're describing this, is sort of down that line as well. But this guy was getting all the tail he could get. I think he was gay or bisexual, and he was fucking everybody within that. But what he was doing, his trick was that he was feeding people what they wanted. He was, feeding either the ego or giving people a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning. And he didn't have to do a whole hell of a lot of brainwashing. As long as he could give people that one thing that they were seeking, they would believe anything he said and do it.
And from what I can tell from the footage and in this documentary about the Rajneeshis, all they wanted was to just build their own community the way that they saw fit. And, very early on, like, the townspeople have had enough of them coming in and taking over everything, and violence erupts, and they find themselves in the position of having to train some of their members in automatic weapons so that they can defend themselves. And it's kind of interesting in that aspect, because this is like they have this ideal that America is a place where they can be free to have the community that they want, but it's inevitable. They have to change their own community in order to live in America.
I do know this guy. Thank you for posting that, Chris. This is the guy. They went off and went into the community and started poisoning salad bars and shit, didn't they?
Poisoning salad bars?
Yeah. These guys were
mass salmonella.
They were. They fit the definition of terrorists at some point.
I just started watching. I think I'm 3 episodes in.
I remember this now. Yeah, I have.
Spoiler alert.
So I guess that's a little sneak peek at where the story is eventually going. Yeah, but that fits in with my story. They had completely noble intentions of just living free, and through the process of just reacting to the other people in the neighboring town, they apparently end up just being horrible people. They attacked.
A mass food poisoning attack is what the Wikipedia page says. Spoiler alert, whatever, we're going to talk about it. And then apparently there was an aborted assassination plot to murder the murder a U.S. attorney as well. Yeah.
Beat.
Yeah, they ran into conflicts, like you said. They ran into conflicts with other people in Wasco County, Oregon. And and then they decided to lash out against the community and against the government as well. Because they felt they wouldn't leave them alone, I suppose.
It's awesome. All right. It's just it's weird because you mentioned you were watching a documentary the other night, and I was like, I don't remember any of this. I don't remember hearing about any of this at all whatsoever. For some reason, I thought it was about the McMartin satanic sexual abuse preschool shit that happened in the 80s. When I heard about the documentary, that's what I thought it was about. And so I was completely off on my end.
I think it just got overshadowed by, more dramatic events like Jonestown. But it's definitely in the culture, because even though I wasn't aware of the story, I guess I was just a little too young at the time. The scene in the Simpsons, remember when they joined the cult and everybody's lined up by the road while their leader drives by and splashes everybody with mud in his stretch limo?
That's leader.
That's what they're doing. He only travels in a Rolls Royce because he has this completely armored Rolls Royce. I guess he had actually flown over from India because that's what he used to drive. The whole reason he left India is because his radical message was inciting too much violence. He would leave the compound. He would get in his Rolls Royce, and everybody would line up and just watch him like drive by and feel blessed by his presence. I guess
I love that all these religious leaders have so much faith in their deity that they have to roll around in bulletproof vehicles.
Well, I mean, you got to be somewhat practical, right?
Oh, bullshit. It's like every time I saw it's like every time I saw like a Christian skateboarder or BMXer wearing a helmet. What are you doing? Go for the sickest, craziest thing you can. If you die, you inherit the kingdom of God. What are you worried about?
Maybe the Pope and his Pope mobile. Like, what you afraid of, buddy?
Maybe there's some people that still haven't heard this joke, but I'm sure you've all heard it. There's many variations on it, but a man is on his roof in a flood, whole house flooded all the way up to the roof. He's sitting there and he's saying, please God save me. He's praying to God, right? Boat comes by and they go, hey, get in. We're going to take you to safety. Oh no, I'm praying to God. God's going to take care of me. I'm all set here. All right. They take off. Another boat comes by. Same thing. Then eventually the water rises. The guy drowns. He goes up to heaven, sees God. He says, well, God, I thought you were going to save me. And he's like, I sent you 2 boats. What the fuck else do you need?
Yeah, the variation I heard was a woman.
Rajneesh's God could say, I gave you enough money to buy an armored Rolls Royce. I don't know why you didn't.
The variation on that I heard was a woman in her 80s, after a lifetime of complaining there's no good men, dies and goes to heaven and goes, God, where are all the good men? She goes, I sent you like 50 of them. You friend zoned all of them. And I was just like, okay.
The friend zone isn't a thing, Rich.
Yeah, okay. All right. Oh, by the way, I did watch a video. I have to get you guys' opinion on this. I'm sorry. Because speaking of cults, hive minds, it's amazing to watch the groups on the far reaches of the left and right splinter and start ripping each other apart and attacking each other, because there's now been a couple books published on it, but it's called Political Lesbianism, that claims that being heterosexual or lesbian is a choice, and if you're a good feminist, you will choose to be a lesbian because fucking men just adds to the patriarchy.
Oh my God.
Right.
Wow.
But isn't there a term for it?
Oh, I don't know. All I know is
that people a biology textbook or what?
Isn't that what a TERF is?
Oh, TERF. Yeah.
But that's just trans exclusionary, right? That's
they're radical rad femmes or whatever they're called. But yeah, that's they don't believe that like male to female transgendered people should be accepted as women because they weren't born into the struggle.
Very similar.
But yeah, I just think
they know that to make more feminists, you need men. Are they aware of this?
Well, I just think it's amazing that we've went so full circle that it used to be the Christian right saying it's a choice,
right?
And now you got and they're on the far right, and now you get the far left saying the same thing. And then when you say, if you dare say something like horseshoe theory, flip sides of the same coin, they both get on their high horses and do their best to just tear you down. And it's like, you are exactly the same. You're a cult. This is groupthink. Nobody is praised for having an independent thought. If you do not adhere to our set in stone until we change them, and then it gets very 1984-ish. We've always been at war with Eurasia. Yeah. We've always been at war. It's never been any different, no matter what you think or say. It turns into that. And it's just, it blows my mind that I'm sitting here watching a video from a feminist talk about how being gay is a choice. And I'm just going, this was hate speech.
This is, well,
4 years ago.
What this is, it's almost like there are certain segments, admittedly radical segments of the population that is trying to turn. It's almost like they're trying to create a world where man is the new Yuden. You know what I mean?
Yuden?
Yeah, the new Jew.
Oh.
You see what I'm saying? As far as the far-right Nazi sort of mentality, and people always ask, well, how does this happen in Germany? How do you start extinguishing an entire segment of the population? That's kind of the same. You're running down that road when you start talking this way. Everything male is dirty, filthy, wrong, and creating problems within the society and needs to be ostracized and go away. It's the same fucking thinking. It's exactly the same.
I guess because I try to... I'm sorry, go ahead, Aaron.
I was just going to say that we're probably not too far off from the solution here. With cloning technology and terraforming of planets, we can literally have men move to Mars.
I'm there.
And have sex robots.
I'm there.
And have women move to Venus.
Your girlfriend still
they can all clone themselves.
She can't hear me say I'm there. She doesn't understand what I'm saying that to. Thank God. She's over there working. I'm there, honey. Here's the finger.
As much as I try to without being so open-minded, my brain falls out of my fucking skull. As much as I try to understand where someone is coming from, I can understand a woman who maybe was born into a family where there was nothing but drunk, abusive, whether it be physically, sexually, emotionally, whatever, men, and she grows up and she just has like, man, I can't stand men. They're all evil. Isn't the easiest thing to do in the world if you hate something is to leave it the fuck alone?
Yeah.
That's what if I don't like you, I don't talk to you. It's that simple. Some of my coworkers, they figured it out.
I disagree with you there. Maybe it's the easiest thing to do, but it's not the human nature thing to do. If you hate something that much, you want to do everything you can to brutalize it, to justify and give yourself justice and lash out at the source. Coin. Yeah. And it occurred to me at some point that, maybe there is a problem with equal rights and all this other stuff, but I'm a white man. I am not required by national or even universal law to burden your cross. I'm not required to do that. And at some point, you're going to turn me and a lot of other people. It's exactly what you were talking about, Rich. You keep this up, you run down this path, and you're gonna make me burden mine. And you're going to turn me into an enemy. There has to be, again, it comes back to the stuff that I was talking about with natural balance. You can run all the way off to one extreme if you want, but there will be balance. And that means that the people that your extremism is attacking, they're going to radicalize themselves against you to an equal proportion. You see what I mean? And that's, God, it's all over the place, man. Everywhere. People are just yanking on the rubber band on both ends. And at some point, it's going to snap. I have no problem with women being treated the same as everybody else. None whatsoever. In that sense, I'm actually kind of a very light feminist. But you start running down this extremist sort of feminazi track and start labeling me as filthy, dirty, the cause of all problems in the world, I'm going to fucking fight back. Me and millions of other people. What are you going to do if you turn me into Rich's 15-year-old daddy?
A lot of the problem that I see is that we have way too many people who still want to believe that it's just a tiny minority of people. These people have no real voice. These people have no real power. And the thing is, they might not, but the fact that every Vox, Huffington Post, whatever, Breitbart, Guardian article that comes out that shines a light on these fucking people. It doesn't matter their political. I don't care where they're at politically. These fucking nutbags, you're just giving them free advertisement. Didn't we learn anything from the to a disputed $3 or $4 billion worth of free advertisement Trump got?
Learned a lot. That's why it's being done. you see what I mean? It learned a ton.
Well, it works. A lot of these tactics are the same tactics. It's growing up, it was, these people are trying to say that you shouldn't have the right to, like the Christians are trying to say you shouldn't have the right to get married if you're gay. Well, to me, that's stupid. All right. Setting aside the fact that I think involving the government in your love life is stupid as is. That's just the way the world is at this point in time. You want to fucking do it, you should have every right to. Well, all of a sudden, that turned into now the people, the Christians on the right, you're victimizing me. You're oppressing me because I can't force my religious beliefs on somebody else.
Right.
You're having to force your secular beliefs on me. No, forcing you would be to make you at gunpoint get married to a gay person and fuck them. That would be oppressing you and forcing you to do something against your will. No one's doing that. Absolutely no one is doing that. Saying that I believe your belief system is bullshit is not oppression. It's just an opinion you don't like. Yeah. And look, it's no different than walking around. If anybody who grew up in a religious family knows this, no one loves to tell you you're going to hell quicker than a Christian. Oh God, they get so moist when they get to tell someone they're going to hell. You're going to hell. And then
that's not generally some Christians, not all of them.
You just look at them and go, well, if I don't believe in heaven, what makes you think I believe in hell? That's like me saying the Easter Bunny's going to kick your ass tonight. It doesn't matter to you. You don't care. You can't. It's just, it blows my mind. And you're absolutely right. All these tactics have been co-opted by all these little groups, and everybody's the victim. And if you just stand there and go, I'm no more a victim of life than life being the circumstance in the first place, no more than we all are. For everybody bitching about how horrible it is here, and yes, we do have a lot of fucked up problems in America. Would you rather have been born in sub-Saharan Africa?
Honduras?
Would you rather have been born in North Korea?
Yeah.
I mean, what would your complaints on the internet be then? Oh, that's right. You don't have access to an open and free internet, or you don't have access to an internet. You're more worried about where your next drink of water that's not mud and filled with malaria is coming from than you are about microaggressions.
And it would still be our fault. It'd still be the U.S.'s fault because you don't have water.
Try being born without a penis in the Middle East.
I read a tweet today that said something to the fact of the problem with America is that every time you investigate one fuck up, you find like 8 other greater fuck ups that this country did. I'm like, well, isn't that called progress? Like, don't you have to go through like, first of all, we can agree that America is not perfect, right? Most of us, I think, can agree that it's not perfect, but it's got a better track record than most countries so far. And, it's one thing to want good things for your country, to want your country to be better, however you view that. But there's no path to the country getting better if you're constantly obsessed with digging up dirt and digging up the past. I mean, it has to be acknowledged, but don't wallow in that shit.
Well, there's a difference between finding, imperfections and using those imperfections as an impetus and an excuse to tear everything down and rebuild it in your own contrived utopian image, and finding those problems and fixing them.
Yeah, that any fault is evidence of the system being broken.
Right. So in the back of your head, you've got this shady image of this literary utopia that you want to build, and that's your excuse to do it because all this stuff is wrong. We have to build this thing that works really well inside of a book, but it's never worked anywhere else. As opposed to, okay, let's take the existing structure we've got and improve it.
Yeah. The scariest part to me of the trend I'm starting to see, and maybe it's always been there, I don't know. Maybe I'm just now getting woke. I don't know. I don't fucking know. Furthermore, neither do I care. I just see it. That's all that matters. Is that it's not just we want to hammer away at hey, America did this and this was bad. Fine. Okay. Name me one empire who's without sin. None of them. Period. They've all made decisions that have cost other cultures, other countries, their natural resources, the lives of their people to further their own agenda in that empire. That is just the price you pay. History is riddled with shitty people winning wars over other shitty people. It's all that there is to it. Get off your high horse. You're never going to change that. What scares me is the fact that the retconning of history to fit agendas nowadays. Couple that with the fact that you have so many people who have a world of information at their fingertips who don't give a shit to know about anything that happened to them before the first time their little pathetic pecker shot anything thicker than dog water. And what do you do? How do you even put things into a perspective for people? You get to the point. You get to the point where you get hysteria like you have in Germany, to where we release a video game over here that's a World War II video game, and there might be like a Nazi flag somewhere during one of the levels. They have to go and scrub the game completely free of anything that even mentions Nazis, because Germany will fall apart eventually if anyone mentions anything about the Nazis in World War II. Right. Get the fuck out of here. Stop acting, don't act like you're doing it for some altruistic reasons, like, well, we want to be sensitive and culturally sensitive. No, ultimately it's about, we're going to beat ourselves up before anyone else can beat us up. It's that self-depreciating humor, theory. I'm going to make fun of, it's that 8 Mile rap battle theory. I'm going to tell you everything that you're about to fucking call me out on before you can say it. Now tell these people something they don't know about me. That's what they're doing, and then they're hoping, and we're set up for it now, that a couple more generations down the road, these people will have no concept of what happened during World War II. These people will have no concept that the average German soldier was not a Nazi, that Nazis were an exclusive party inside of Germany.
No, the average German soldier was conscripted at some point.
Exactly. They had no idea what the fuck was going on. Right. The Nazis had complete villages and towns and cities you could not set foot in unless you were a member of the Nazi party.
Well, there's a couple of things there, too. They also had complete control of the media. As you said, as you aptly pointed out earlier, the first thing you do when you're a totalitarian state is attack the free press. And eventually, the only information Germans were getting was the information that was approved and put forth by Goebbels and Hitler, Goering, whoever else, right? So they didn't know any better. Now, this was, a long time before the internet came along. So you were basically, you were dining on whatever intellectual fare was put in front of you at this very limited buffet back at that point in time.
Absolutely.
And the second point that I'm going to go back to how do you get people to seek out objective fact and truth? You can't do that. That is impossible. One of the Escaping the Cave podcasts I did, I mentioned that, and how I phrased it in that podcast, and I still believe that, is that you can't save anybody. People have the switch, the button that has to be pushed for people to seek out the truth, objective fact, information, question their own beliefs, and find the reality is an internal button. It's inside of the skull. You can't touch that button. It has to be done by the individual. And that, unfortunately, despite what most people think and what people want to put forth and how they want to view themselves or whatever else, is not something that people do. It's not something that people typically are interested in. They're tribal. They need their ideology. They need their religion. And people don't have that sense of self-awareness. And if they do, they don't care. They're not interested in the damage that's being done collectively by that mentality. That's damning.
Yeah.
Because at least with the Germans, just to finish the point up, at least with in Nazi, God, everybody loves the Nazis. We should keep track of how many times we make a Nazi reference in these podcasts. But at least you can excuse that to an extent, a very small extent. Maybe not even that small, because they didn't know any better. They were getting one intellectual train of thought put forth that they could consume. We don't have that excuse. The truth, the facts, at least having an internal dialogue and debate, the capability is at our fingertips if you have an internet connection. You can find it. You don't have that excuse now. So in 50 years or 100 years, however this plays out, people are going to look back at this point in time and they're not going to be forgiving. They had all this information and they just chose to ignore it and isolate and wall themselves off from everybody else.
Yeah, I'm really glad, I guess, that even though sometimes I wish I was born a little bit earlier even than when I was born, I guess I'm glad I was born at the time I was, and I was exposed to a lot of the pop culture I was, because a lot of the music I listened to growing up, they had lyrics that said, it's up to you to seek the truth, to know your history, to know the difference between me and you. Now, I mean, and these were albums that were in the top 40 on the charts. Now it's I eat booty like groceries. And I mean, that's not to say that there wasn't garbage back then.
I was just going to invoke Poison and Skid Row.
Right.
To me, it's just monkey business. Yeah, that was fucking profound stuff there.
It's not the same. It's not the same. Yeah, but then if you go and listen to that same album, and I'm not a big Skid Row fan, but you go listen to something like Quicksand Jesus, the whole song's about fucking overdosing and throwing your whole life away over sticking a needle in your arm.
Just giving you shit.
No, I mean, but you get. I mean, yes, it's out there, but it's just like there's always been bubblegum bullshit, and there's always been stuff that's there to make you think. It just seems like we are really in an anti-renaissance, if you will, of we almost look down upon intellectualism. We almost look down upon anyone. Why do you want to know that? It's the Bill Hicks joke. What are you reading for?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? I almost lived that at a local Coney Island a year or two ago. I took an actual physical book in. I wasn't reading off an electronic device. And the guy said, you don't see, at the counter says, you don't see that hardly ever anymore. And I was like, I thought you were going to say something else. I was about to quote Bill Hicks to you. And he started grinning because he knew the bit.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me is the scariest thing that I'm starting to see, because I'm blessed and I'm cursed to work with a lot of younger people, and just the absolute, I don't know, and I don't want to know it. I don't care to know that shit.
Yeah.
What's it matter? That has nothing to do with me. I'm under attack now because I'm a demisexual, pan, cis, non-gender conforming person. I don't care. Those people that stormed the beach at Normandy, they never suffered like I've suffered. And I'm just looking at him going, you said that with a straight face and totally unironically. I almost wish my grandfather was there to slap the shit out of him. But and it's a rhetorical question because you've answered it already. And I knew it was a rhetorical question. I said it's so frustrating. You can't make people care. No. God damn it. You got to be able to turn on a light when they're stumbling around in the dark.
No, you can't. That's the thing you got to give up. You cannot do that for people. You just can't. You've got to seek out the ones that are inclined that way to keep yourself sane, so you don't take it completely. And they are out there. It's not everybody. Right. You got to keep yourself from having a completely isolated. There's two ways, and I said this last week. There are two definite directions you can go that are just as irrational as the other. One is to isolate yourself off and wall yourself off in a cave and only seek out the same types of thinkers that you are. But there's also the flip side of the coin is to get so cynical that you assume that everyone is sort of a clone creation of this anti-intellectual archetype that you've created in your head. And that's not the truth either. Neither one of those, both of those are diametrically opposed to the same degree. You see what I mean? It's very difficult. It's almost like it's a negative, like you put two magnets together and they repel to, sort of a distance apart. Just because you hate this, you can't put yourself off in this sort of cynical reactionary cave of your own making to the other way. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. The point where I feel like I'm beating my head against a brick wall is when you talk to anyone, and when you talk to a person and you get to a point of they disagree. You might agree with 99 things. The one thing they disagree with you with is the one thing they're going to focus on.
Right.
And they're going to label you who, doesn't know shit about shit. The problem is that he pointed out, rightfully so, all these conservatives you call stupid went to the same colleges that you went to, sat through the same classes you sat through. They just disagreed with them. Mm-hmm. They know the same shit you know.
Yeah. And
when you sit there and label an entire group of people like that, it goes back to the question that Jordan Peterson asked and Bill Maher. How do you come back from that? And here's the answer. They don't want to come back from it.
No, they don't. They want to engage in warfare.
Exactly. And once again, so we're just going to be the occupied peoples while these idiots lob bombs at each other and hope that one of them doesn't hit us?
Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. Get used to it. That's exactly where we're headed. That is exactly where I've been saying it for months, dude. I have my moments of optimism where I see maybe possible alternate tracks, but If I had to lay money on it, that's exactly what I would predict. If I had to go to Vegas right now, if I flew out there on one of Chris's trips, we're hanging out at Caesars or wherever, and I had to lay money down on a table and make a wager on which path we're going to take, that's the one that I would put every dime I have on. And one other thing, as far as your example goes for the generalizing that comes from the left, the right does the same thing. You've gone to Fox News, you've seen the comment sections, and you've seen all these conservatives that will throw the word libtard around and say liberalism or progressivism is a social or a mental disease and everything. Yeah, it's not exclusive to either camp. And that's the problem. And I think the solution, if you're asking, I'm not sure if you are, I heard the word how in there a couple of times. You have to just cut those people off. You have to cut the infected limb out of your social life. You're not going to change those people. You have to find the people who are interested in good discussions, good conversations, who do have an open mind, who are willing to sit quietly, listen, and ask themselves if maybe they were wrong about some things. Ask themselves if if it's even possible, remotely possible, that both of the dogmas, both of the ideological religions are in some way wrong. But also, what's right about both of them? And where's the compromise? Where's the middle ground? Because if you can't figure that out, if you can't find enough people who are willing to do that, then that throwing bombs over your house as you sit inside cowering while these two religions do warfare in the street, it's going to come. If you don't figure that out. Not you, but if we don't figure that out.
Todd, you brought up two dirty words. Well, you indirectly brought up two dirty words nowadays: introspection and accountability.
Yeah, don't forget compromise.
Yeah, three dirty words.
Yeah, sorry. The C word, right?
Yeah. Like, it might have been, I don't know at what point, like, hey, maybe I'm the fucked up one. Or maybe I fucked up. When did that go away?
Well, again, I mentioned On Liberty, John Stuart Mill, to you guys a number of times, and he attacks that full frontal assault on it in like the 1850s, playing devil's advocate, listening to what other people have to say and actually considering it. You don't have to accept it. It's not saying just because you listen and consider, you're going to be brainwashed and all of a sudden you're going to be, indoctrinated into the other cult. But there are parts of progressivism that make sense. There are parts of conservatism that makes sense. And just because you agree with one thing doesn't mean you have, just because you disagree with this doesn't mean that the entire ideology is corrupt. But by the same token, just because you believe one thing doesn't mean that it's divine either. And that's completely, I have very, very few people that I know of that I interact with are capable of that. It's too much fucking work.
That's why I don't believe that when people say they love music and then all they listen to is like one genre. Like, I love music, it's my life, I only listen to industrial.
Right.
I don't think you really love music. You love the scene. You love being part of something or whatever.
What about the ones that mock hip hop at the same time? You see what I mean?
Right.
I love music.
If you loved music, you'd find good music everywhere.
Right.
I listen to both kinds of music, country and Western.
Tip your waiters and your bartenders.
No, and I absolutely, I know what you're saying when you say the right lumps everybody together, et cetera, et cetera. My problem is the right does not have the chokehold on the media, on pop culture, on higher education, on universities that the left has.
Agreed.
And when you are the minority voice, yet you are constantly attacked as the majority, and somehow that you're preaching from a place of power, punching down by people who are standing over top of you.
Mm-hmm. Have you read his book yet? Have you gotten that book yet?
No, I've not read the book yet. No.
Get your hands on it. I highly recommend it. Highly.
But I mean, honestly, when the whole thing with Bill C-16 came up a couple years ago, and I found he had lectures online. And ironically, the lectures of his I enjoy the most are the ones that are before he was thrown into the political fire, if you will.
Yeah.
And because you saw people of all types of political leanings in his lectures, not dismissing him, not waiting for a chance to stand up and, hold up their handmade sign that says smash the patriarchy and all this shit, not waiting to make a scene, actually listening to him and engaging in a debate or a discussion in a class. Gee, I don't know, like you're supposed to do in higher education.
Right.
That's what college is there for. College is there for to introduce you to ideas that make you uncomfortable, that make you think outside of your preconceived notion of the way the world works. That is a given. And when it's taken away, and the people taking it away are screaming that they're so oppressed and they're so downtrodden, from who? Who is doing this to you? Point to them. Right. Please tell me. 3 of us went to Specs. If all 3 of us had went to Specs at the same time and we all 3 had a problem with a professor and we managed to get, let's say, 15 other people, fuck it, let's make it an even 20, 17 other people to agree with us, and we walked in the front door and started throwing a shit fit and holding up signs and chanting because we wanted this instructor gone, they'd have very probably not so politely shown us the front door and said, thanks for the money, now get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Nowadays, that's how you get a teacher, a professor you don't agree with, out of there.
Well, yeah, I highly, I'm going to say this one more time, and I know I'm being redundant, but get the book. Because he gets into this pretty well in detail in part of that book. The problem with the indoctrination in higher education. And he comes from a place, considering his history up there in Canada with the university system, where he can speak knowledgeably upon this. It affected him directly. And one other thing, before we move on too far from this, you mentioned the media control of the left, right? And the apparatus that's in place. And I'm going to toot my own horn here a little bit. A couple of years ago, I was examining, this was when I was firmly entrenched in Camp Left, and I was bemoaning the fact that the only thing that the far right was lacking was some semblance of cohesion. That once they had their demagogue, somebody who would come along and unite them, that it was going to be a relatively terrifying experience. I never imagined it would be Donald Trump. In my wildest fucking dreams, I gave him a lot more credit than that. But it did. And I was right about that. And I'm seeing the same thing now with these different factions on the left. The problem with this is they don't have that yet. It's coming. Their Trump is coming. He's out there right now, plotting. And he's going to be just as batshit to the other side of the extreme as Donald Trump was to the right. And the thing that should terrify everybody is that he's going to have almost the entire media apparatus at his disposal. Trump didn't have that. He had Fox News. He had Breitbart, Fringe. Well, I wouldn't call Fox News Fringe. It's a concentrated, consolidated conservative media outlet. That's why their ratings are so huge. It's one, whereas the liberals have several, right? You get that liberal demagogue and prop him up, get him in a position of power and influence. He's got the entire media apparatus at his disposal. That should be terrifying.
Well, the more terrifying thing to me is that the stage is being set by people who I thought should know better. Case in point, this last week with Bill Maher, basically saying, "Yeah, I'd rather the country go into recession."
Yeah, I thought that was fucked up.
Than for Trump to succeed because we're losing our democracy.
Well, we're not all worth millions, Bill.
Yeah,
I mean,
we wouldn't all come out of this, as clean as you would.
This shows what the assholes on the right have been preaching to Billy Bob and Amanda Lee in the middle of the country.
They weren't wrong. A lot of the stuff.
They were absolutely right.
Yeah.
These people are so entrenched in their own little bubble, their limousine liberal bubble, that they don't understand that if another 2008 happens in the next 10 years, we might not recover as quick this time. And if we do recover, we might not even look like the same country that it was before 2008. And we might not look like the same country as it is now. And I'm not talking about diversity for the sake of diversity. I'm talking about we went in the span of 20 years from two people living together could work one job each and support themselves to now it might take 2-3 jobs for those two people to work. Now, whether that be a Lyft, an Uber, 2 part-time jobs, a hustle on the side, whatever the fuck. And I mean, I said this last week and you were like, yeah, but people get used to it. Yeah, but the problem is that there's eventually a point where you don't have any more hours in the day and you're not making enough money. And when the hole in my stomach gets fucking big enough, and God forbid the families who have to, the parents come home and the kids, you know, we can't even afford to fucking go to work because we can't afford for anyone to watch our kids. So as a consequence, we can't afford to fucking even feed our kids half the time, except for the dollar menu at McDonald's, which we all know you live off that, you won't live for long. I mean, the shit just rolls downhill. And for someone like Bill Maher, of all fucking people, to sit there and be like, yeah, I'd rather we go into another recession. For that Michelle, who was the Michelle Wolf? Is that the chick that was the Correspondence Dinner?
Yeah.
Had her show, and you know, do you hope that negotiations with North Korea fail so Trump doesn't get credit? And it's like 73% of her audience agrees with that statement or wishes that the negotiations would fail. Really? You want to put us even further at odds with people, with a person who we've just sat here talking about, who we've been talking about for how long since he took over for his daddy?
Can I give you a counterballast to that little poll? There was another one that came out this week just to show you how polarized to the batshit ends of the spectrum we are. There was a, I don't remember who did it, but somebody put together a hypothetical where if Trump had Comey shot, right?
Right. That was Giuliani.
Yeah, that was it. Thank you. Yeah.
He could shoot Comey in the middle of the street and you couldn't prosecute him.
Right. So somebody put together a poll saying, should he be prosecuted for shooting Comey? And on the other end,
right,
it was like 40 or 50% of Republicans said, no, he shouldn't be. I'm not kidding. I mean, now in the grand scheme of things, the people that were, it was like 70, I'm not even going to give this credit. 70%, only 70% of the people said, no, he shouldn't be prosecuted for having Comey shot. Only 70%.
The Law and Order Party, ladies and gentlemen. Law and Order Party.
Come on. Yeah, it's this, the religion, the fanaticism is really, to some degree, and I can't quantify it, to some degree, it's polluting with a syphilitic effect the body politic and the collective mind.
Well, I mean, I understand hating someone and not wanting to see him do well on a personal level. Like if you hate Trump and Melania files for divorce, you're not gonna cry for that. You know, you're not gonna cry for that failed marriage. But to wish harm upon your own country, that is the definition of cutting your nose off to spite your face.
And let's understand something. Bill Maher will never go into recession.
No.
For him to say that is tone deaf, doesn't even begin.
Short-sighted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just remember, and this is all anyone on the right has to say, and as fucked up as it is. Go ahead.
We lose you?
Well, I'm just saying, I'm just starting to notice parallels between, I don't know, the mid-2000s and now. I mean, think about how, look at the thing with De Niro on Sunday, right? The whole fuck Trump thing. And just, if you think back, Bush's first term, he's a war criminal, worst president ever. Hollywood was united against him. We got a second term. I'm starting to notice a pattern here.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Because people like De Niro, even if I agree with his sentiment, gets up in front of a bunch of people who were just one millimeter of butt cheek touching the seat, ready to jump up and burst into thunderous applause because they know De Niro, one, has made his money, two, his legacy set. He don't give a fuck if he gets blacklisted. But on top of that, he has nothing to worry about being blacklisted because he's preaching to the fucking choir. He is literally preaching to the people who will eat that shit up.
Well, that
takes no balls.
It was about as brave as a touring band coming and saying, "We love Detroit."
I know, right?
I know, right?
Yeah.
We love this city.
Way to go out on a limb there, Bob.
Yeah, let's see somebody go up and say, "God bless Donald Trump," and see what happens. That takes balls. That would take bravery in that same scenario.
I hope that Donald Trump's businesses fail. I hope his hair falls out. I hope he gets fatter and less healthy.
Coronary.
I don't necessarily, I'm right up to that line. I don't wish him any actual harm, but some repercussions for his actions would be appropriate. But I said this weeks ago when they started talking about having this meeting. I really do hope that it goes well. Give him the fucking Nobel Prize. Who cares? Bob Dylan has one. Doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, my life's not going to change. I don't give a shit who gets it.
Yeah,
right.
Just think about this. Kid Rock has a National Association for the Advancement of Colored People award. Kid Rock.
Dog whistle racist.
That's how much these things mean. So
I think, look, we're stuck with Trump, right? We understand that. So let's look at who he does work well with. Okay, how does Putin and Kim Jong-un handle him? Maybe we should take a little page from their books and actually figure out how to feed this guy's ego in the right way to get our agenda done. That's the only way. I mean, Democrats have tried that approach, but then they get slapped down by their own party immediately and they go slink back into their hole. But I think that's the reality that we're living in, is that, like Trudeau, if he wants to actually do something about these steel tariffs that he's upset about, he's got to know by now that going headlong into it might be good for his base because they want to see that. They want to see him stand up to Trump, right? But is it going to do anything about the steel tariffs? Fuck no. It might even make him double down on this shit because that's his personality. We understand who this guy is. So kiss his ass a little bit. Give him a fucking, I don't know, does Canada have their own version of a Nobel Prize? Give him whatever the top prize you can give in Canada. Have him out there, put a medal around his neck, get a photo shoot, let him grab your hand however you want and shake you around and totally manhandle you. I think there's a way that politicians can actually do this and still have their base understand that, look, I'm just trying to get something out of this fool. This is how you work him. You shake him the right way and he spits out money.
Yeah, and there's also the fact that a lot of what Trump was saying about the trade deficit, et cetera, the TPP, was the same things Bernie was saying. And I find it very hard to believe that if Bernie was president and was talking with Trudeau, that Trudeau would make the snarky comments he makes in the press. I mean, you can't play holier than thou after while still brushing the pig shit off of you from rolling around in the mud with the biggest scumbag on the face of the earth, according to you. You can't do it.
I think that's kind of the definition of the job, though, isn't it? A modern or not even a modern politician, just a politician.
Yeah, it's been that way for thousands of years.
I think you have to do that. I think
diplomacy, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but rolling around in the mud it's a given. I mean, it's like eating shit.
Well, you roll around in the mud, you stand up muddy, and you declare yourself squeaky clean.
Exactly. It's just like eating shit. No, because you
go on.
Think about it. You get elected. Let's say you get elected mayor of Detroit. Okay, well, someone brings you a big bowl, sets it down in front of you. It's a big old fucking bowl full of shit. And it's from the pastors, and you got to eat it. Then you get one from the unions, and you got to eat it. And you got to smile the whole time because you're going to need these people and their base to get reelected in 4 years. I mean, that's the game you've chosen to play. And if you want sympathy from me for that, go to your dictionary, and it lays between the words shit and syphilis. That's where my sympathy for anyone who chose that lifestyle lays. To me, it's no different than if I choose to go into a line of work where my job is to kill people who are trying to kill me, and I'm going to complain and bitch and complain. Oh, this person shot back at me. What the hell's wrong with them? They're doing their job, same as I am, period. I mean, you can't volunteer for this work and then go, oh, I'm so put upon. That doesn't work with me. Politicians get away with that shit way too much in this country. We have way too much sympathy for people who are our employees. And we don't see them like that. We see them as our leaders. You're not, first of all, I don't need a fucking leader, right? You're hired to do a job. Either do your job or we'll put someone in there who will do the job that we want. But that's not what politicians do, and they get a pass on that shit. And that's what I'm saying. If Bernie went over there and Bernie had done all the same shit Trump had done without all the fucking shit talking, but he had done all the same stuff, I highly doubt that the world press would be handling Bernie the same way they're handling Trump.
No, but Fox News would be.
Oh, well, that's Fox News is the Yes Network.
Yeah.
They're rooting for the Yankees no matter what. I mean, that's all there is to it.
Yeah, and the other networks are rooting against the Yankees. They're Nesson.
Exactly.
New England Sports Network, Aaron. That's the Red Sox. Okay. The Red Sox don't like the Yankees, Aaron. Sports.
I was going to say we need to check the dryer for his sports shirt that we can throw it out here.
My brain recognizes sports reference. It just turns them into white noise.
I got you. Yeah, that's how Aaron or Hannah Kendrick describes your missives.
Oh, snap!
Gotcha.
Well. Yeah, it is starting to look like it's a two-term president here, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we see less evidence of this so-called blue wave.
Hold on,
a lot more evidence of people who Republicans are actually speaking out against him, either just retiring
or going away,
or being sent away, and we'll find a Trump supporter to put in your place.
Now, just in case we've added a couple hundred to the thousands upon thousands of unregimented listeners this week, let's do a little self-identification of our fundamental ideological leanings of the four of us on this show. I'll start. I'm sort of a left-leaning centrist at this point. I used to be far left, and now I'm sort of just to the left of center. What about you guys?
I really don't even know where to plot myself on this graph.
Yeah, I mean, I've taken that test several times. My dot always comes literally right.
Self-identify. Give yourself an ideological mammogram here. Rub your titty and tell me what you feel. I don't care about the test. Where would you guys self-identify?
Lefty libertarian.
Libertarian that leans to the right.
Ideological heretic.
Chaotic neutral.
I just hate it. I hate. No, honestly. I'm an egalitarian. I don't know. Because honestly, I don't know. This is the problem with this. We're having to dismiss or ignore certain beliefs of ourselves to align ourselves up with this, with an answer to this question. I mean, I've lived with Aaron. There's parts of Aaron that he's conservative about that has made me go, oh, I didn't see that coming. There's parts of him he's liberal about where I'm like, I damn sure didn't see that coming.
Right.
And I mean, Chris, respects with Chris, I thought Chris was a fucking commie.
Really? I thought I've called him a teabagger once or twice.
Yeah, but we're talking 19 years ago now. So.
Well, not that long. But I mean, don't put too much thought into it. I'm just what I'm trying to do. This isn't I'm not going to put it on your epitaph or anything like that. But what triggered that question was where Aaron, who I consider historically anyway to be a little bit, you and I used to align quite well on the left, I thought. And when you can say that we're looking at a two-term presidency, you see what's coming. This isn't a bunch of conservatives sitting around the podcast campfire getting all dreamy-eyed about a second term for Trump.
No, not at all.
Hey. We see this from all over the spectrum. I think the four of us are almost. Any of you see him not getting reelected as things stand now?
No, and you know who his best campaigners are? The people who hate him the most.
Liberals. Yeah, they always were.
It's hard to predict, certainly, but if the election was this year, there's no question.
Right.
It doesn't matter it doesn't matter who runs against him. They could have their own version of Trump.
Yeah. I won't vote for it. If I had to vote, I've said it before, and I know it's heresy, but if I had to choose between Trump and whatever the fucking this sort of pseudo-communist incantation on the far left is becoming, I'll choose Trump if I had to vote today. I hate saying that. And considering where I come from, I said this before, man, that is just, it's epic that I would even say those words would come out of my mouth.
Well, I think if the left had their own true version of Trump, then it would also hold true that person would have no respect for the agenda of the people who voted for them. Right? I mean, Trump only became a conservative because he found an opening.
Mm-hmm. They saw an opportunity.
Right, and that's what the left is going to get if they want their own version of Trump to run against him.
I don't see that. I see the demagogue coming from the left end of the spectrum, and it's coming. I'll say it again. He's out there, or she's out there. It's going to be one of ideological purity. It's going to be the anti-Trump. That's the only way you can win. You've got
their own version. I see. I'm looking at two different things then, because there's the opposite of Trump, which is what you're describing. The left's version of the Trump would be the same empty promises that Trump had. I mean, he's I don't know.
Look, the one thing coming from the far left right now, I think that if you had to define a distinctive trait on the far left, it's purity, ideological purity, right?
Right. I guess I would describe it as superiority.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's for sure. But I think that's what I'm seeing. I mean, you see it throughout the campuses. We were talking about Jordan Peterson on the campus, so therefore he had to endure the storm, the backlash, the outrage storm on the campus. And that's what you're dealing with the left, I think. And I think that the demagogue that's going to come and unite all of these little factions is going to be one of ideological purity.
Well, then, if we're going to,
but you're saying that this person is honestly going to be that pure, that they'll be.
That's like
the anti-Trump is like 100% legitimate.
Who gives a shit? It doesn't matter. He's going to project it.
Okay.
That's neither here nor there.
Well, here's
then we are saying the same thing.
Here's what I think the better exercise is if we're going to build an anti-Trump,
mm-hmm.
what is their political ideology? And you have to go on a case-by-case basis. And if you're going strictly to try to get the Trump haters and then you're going to count very little on the swing vote, the people who will vote either side of the political party, you're going to get Hillary times 100. You're going to get fuck the flyover states. You're going to get, you've had your shot, white people. You're going to get, Black Lives Matter storming a politician's pulpit, pushing them out of the way, and the politician sits there with their hands clasped in front of them and their head bowed, like they're a little child being called on the carpet.
I don't think it can be a man.
I have the giggles because I'm picturing
the penis.
I'm picturing the left building their anti-Trump like in Weird Science. They build the perfect girl. They've got like copies of the Washington Post, like putting it down.
New York Times.
Make sure to get Jezebel in there.
Well, imagine Elizabeth Warren.
I got this Rachel Maddow wig.
Actually, yeah. Actually, boy.
Actually, what? You think Rachel Maddow is a good anti-Trump candidate?
Yeah. She's gay. She's smart. She's articulate.
Yeah, she's very smart, very articulate.
She's educated. She's successful. She's a media person. What's that?
White. She's white.
Nah, it doesn't matter. She's got a pussy. They'll deal with white if she's got a vag. And then,
I think the lesbian outweighs a lot of that.
Yeah, one that's not being assaulted by a dirty penis.
It's, you guys, you're right, but you're right by just the slimmest of margins, because the blowback towards white feminism and white lesbianism from this.
Are those the Beckys?
No. I'm not saying it's going to be successful. I'm just saying it's coming, because I think you're right. I think that's going to be the thing. Again, we're just speculating here, having some fun trying to predict the future. I'm the only Todd Stradamus here, by the way. But what we're creating is a scenario I would think to run up against Trump. And you're absolutely right, Rich. I don't think it's going to be successful. I think it'll create enough of a backlash then that's what I was saying. That's what we were just talking about. You know, there's 4 of us here. None of us like Trump. None of us consider ourselves Trumpians. And we would probably, I don't know, I won't speak for you guys, but we all see him getting reelected because of it. I'm more concerned, I think, about 2024. Because if that fails, you put a radicalized Elizabeth Warren out there, you put Rachel Maddow out there, and it fails, then what? This is an ugly road.
The problem is that you have, it just reminds me of, like I said, election night, when it was done and over, and they had called it for Trump, and Hillary had called him, did whatever she did, and he gave his acceptance speech, whatever. And I went to the store, and I was listening to the Air America on Sirius, you know, the left-wing version of Fox News, and they were just like, we lost because we ignored the flyover states. We didn't do what Bill Clinton did. We didn't make those people believe, and, you know, and all this shit. And hearing that, and then literally the next day, not even 24 hours later, hearing the exact same host with the exact same fan base and caller base, and them saying, we didn't go far enough to the left. We didn't exclude white people enough. White women are to blame for Trump.
Right.
And I'm just going, you can't keep digging down that identity politics hole and expect to get anywhere.
That's what I was talking about with expecting me to bear your cross and turning me into a demon. You cannot do that. You can't create demons out of people and expect them to follow you, especially, you know, like it or not, white people are still a majority in this country.
Yeah, we went over the census figures a few podcasts ago. 70% of the country is still white people.
White men, still a big demographic, kids. Yeah,
they're half of that percentage.
You want to alienate them, ostracize them, and create enemies out of them. Good fucking luck climbing that mountain.
And here's the problem. If you actually sit down and have a conversation with a lot of people, if these people would sit down and have a conversation with the enemy, aka us, they would find that we're not that far off on the vast majority of our beliefs and how we see the world. I have to say, like, you know, when I do the show with Corey and a subject comes up, I find myself saying, just because I don't agree with the thoughts that someone is having on the subject doesn't mean that I think their rights should be taken away or violated or withheld from them. At no point have I ever said that.
Give yourself a plug. Who's Corey and what's the show?
I just realized that I called him by his off-air name. People were like, Corey, I thought he did a show with a guy named Rye. It's nighttime conversations or discussions with Rich and Rye. But
on the ChristopherMedia.net network.
Yeah, there you go. And you know, I mean, but I find myself having to say that. I find myself having to say that, and it pisses me off because it should be apparent. And the problem is that too many people assume, like, okay, case in point, the subject of should a 4-year-old be able to decide his own gender? I said flat out, no. No, I don't. You want to dress in girl clothes, dress in girl clothes. But you don't even understand the concept of gender at this point, especially the way social sciences are pushing it. You don't understand that at 4 years old. You know what I wanted to be at 4 years old? Wolverine.
Yeah, 4-year-olds don't understand the concept that you can't have ice cream for every meal.
Exactly.
I wanted to be a cop.
Jesus God.
Yeah.
You ever seen Bad Lieutenant? That's you. but serious. But, you know, and I found myself having to say, now that doesn't mean that any trans person, whether they're a child, an adult, should be denied any rights. But that's how far we've come, to where you can't even disagree with just a sliver of the dogma of these people without having to give that caveat. And even that's not good enough for some of them. Some of them are like, well, that doesn't matter. That's the wrong kind of progressive people. You're the wrong kind of feminism, the wrong kind of diversity, the wrong kind of equality.
And that's that's exactly why I was saying that I think whoever's coming from the left, the next demagogue, the next leftist demagogue is going to be a purist. They have to be.
And here's the scary part. I didn't agree with Bernie on everything. A lot of things I didn't agree with him on, to be honest with you. But if he was president, we wouldn't be having these shows like this. These shows would not be like this. It would be just maybe because he would force some things through,
right,
and be fighting some battles that were historic, whether it be single payer or something along those lines. We would talk about that.
Right.
But it would be like Obama. We mostly ignored the rights attacks on Obama. Why? Because we knew you hated him from the get-go.
Yep. And that's why the attacks on Trump are being ignored, aren't they? As far as collusion and everything else goes, there's no substance from the viewpoint of the right. There's no substance. The same as Benghazi was not a thing on the left because it's coming from the right and they just hate Obama. Same thing with collusion on the right. There's no substance because they just hate Trump.
But to be honest, I clearly remember a show with Jay on where I said, how would you rate Obama as a president? I think I want to say he said like C-. And I asked him, okay, why such a low rating? And he just ran down the list. He's like, if you want to go by international law, he's a war criminal. All the drone strikes, the killing of innocents, et cetera, et cetera.
U.S. citizens.
None of us disagreed with him.
Nope.
I mean, that's the thing. That's what is missing. That's what people who go, you're a centrist, that's just a label that makes you comfortable. Mm-hmm. That's what that does. It does not affect me. I'm calling out
politically agnostic.
I'm calling out bullshit wherever I see it.
Yeah. Well, you're gonna keep yourself busy.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. That's not a centrist, a left, a right thing. That's just someone going, hey, I'm sorry, but I don't want to, you pissed your pants. You might want to go change them. You don't want to walk around with pissy pants all day.
Right.
And if you don't listen to me, then walk around smelling like piss. I don't give a shit. But the one
thing I wanted to add as far as your dreamy scenario as it seems now, if Bernie were elected, I think that ship has sailed. I think that was maybe the last moment where we could have had sort of a sensible left-leaning president. I don't think that we can go back. I think Bernie is too moderate now.
Aaron and I tried. All right, we felt the burn.
Yeah, I did too. I would have voted for him in a heartbeat.
He won my state.
Yeah.
In the primary, he won my state. I did my part.
Right. But I don't think that Bernie Sanders, I think in 2 years' time, after 2 more years of Trump, after 2 more years of the radicalization, the bilateral radicalization that's happening, I don't think he could win.
Oh,
I don't think he's pure enough.
No, and Trump would have a fucking field day with his age.
Oh God, I'd love to see those debates.
He would rip him apart just based on his how old he is. He would be what?
What's the thing? Isn't Trump not that much younger than Bernie?
I think they're about
Trump's
the same
like
age.
71. Trump's as old as my dad. Isn't Bernie like only 2, maybe 3 or 4 years older than him?
I thought he was 4, if I remember correctly. I thought he was 4, so he would be 75 by the time, 74 or almost 75 by the time he took office, which would make him the oldest president in history.
Here's a question for you. Let's run with the Rachel Maddow scenario, and they're debating on a national stage. Do you think Trump would call her a carpet muncher on national TV?
Yeah, no. Why not? Or at least on Twitter.
No, I think he has enough restraint to not call her names, but
really,
he certainly would be like, well, the things that she does, and I don't even want to think or talk about them. But
I would even do that to Melania, and I'm a man.
Right.
That's why she's so forlorn. Politics are ridiculous, man. It's just ridiculous.
I would think he would. I don't know, because who'd have thought he'd have said the shit he said?
That's what I'm saying. I think he would go off script. I think he'd do it.
I think he would probably say a lot of along the same lines of shit he said about Hillary. She's a nasty woman, et cetera, all that.
Yeah.
But I think if he's going for re-election, things would be leaked that he said. I don't think he would get up during a debate and be like, this dyke's part of the pink mafia. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he would go that far. Now, maybe if she pissed him off, which, I mean, it's, if she went the whole few good men cross-examining, Jack Nicklaus route and pissed him off to the point where he's like, you damn right I fucking called you a carpet muncher, bitch. What's your diesel dyke haircut? I mean, maybe, hey.
Make America straight again.
Seriously, what's your dyke spike haircut? Get the fuck out my face, bitch. I mean, maybe if he snapped, that'd get him out of office. And if that's the case, run, Rachel, run.
I totally see him and Rachel Maddow on stage, tiptoeing around the lesbian issue. If not, jumping full bore face first into it. See what I did there?
But let's be honest, who gives a single fuck? Who anyone fucks? Seriously.
Are you serious? Who gives a... Do you want an answer to that as a rhetorical? A lot of people give a...
Raving conservatives
or will pretend
give a fuck about who you fuck.
They will convince themselves they give a fuck.
Yeah. And Dick Cheney's daughter is a lesbian, and they managed to rationalize putting him in office as vice president twice.
They give a fuck about who certain people fuck.
Right. Depends on if they like you or if they're in your religion or not.
Mm-hmm. If they don't like you, you're sick.
Yep.
If they do like you, maybe you're troubled.
We love the sinner, we hate the sin. That condescending horse shit.
Oh. Yeah.
There you go.
America.
But you don't know how to separate the two, so you can't say that.
It's the same way with that Hillary was a horrible woman, horrible example of a woman and a wife to the right, and Michelle Obama was didn't know her place and all this, and then Melania has naked pictures. I could literally within 10 seconds of touching a keyboard pull up naked pictures of her with other women committing lesbian acts, by the way. And they just, oh, well, that's art. Oh, I'm sorry. Is Robert Mapplethorpe art? Oh, no, that's homosexual propaganda.
Okay. Say if you
just
come to it, it's not art. Putting that out there.
Wait, come with it. I see what you did there. No, I just want you to remember this, though. Next time you start having that sort of algebraic, formulaic conversation about trying to apply logic to human reason. Just remember what we're talking about. That's how people are. And I keep coming back to that old Lenny Bruce thing. The truth is what is. What should be is a fantasy, a terrible, terrible lie someone gave the people long ago. Yeah, people should be thinking logically. They should be thinking, in consistent fashions, knowing what they believe and applying the standards equally, right? People don't. The should doesn't matter. The truth is what is, and people are not rational. And you've got to, operate within that framework, or you're going to drive yourself insane or just make yourself a completely miserable cynic that's so difficult to be around, you're not going to be relevant. I'm not speaking to anyone in particular here. I'm just saying that as I've discovered that about myself. You got to, you have to know the battlefield. If you don't know the battlefield, if you think the troops should be over there when in reality they're over there, you're going to end up shot or maimed. I love sucking the air out of this podcast. It's awesome.
I'm too busy looking up nude pictures of Melania Trump.
A lot of the problem that goes back to what I was talking about earlier, though. You have a lot of people calling everyone who says, I might vote for Bush a Nazi or a warmonger or an idiot or a sister fucker. Because you understand how many people you're turning off from your own cause? And here was the response. I don't give a fuck.
That's right.
I just want to piss them off.
Yeah.
Fuck them.
Well, I did that. I was right front and center doing that. I did that for a long time after that. I got to the point, Rich, where I got so frustrated with trying to reason with people. And I did. I legitimately tried in my own Todzilla way, admittedly. But I started taking a track where I figured that I thought that shame would be more effective than reason at some point. And I was dead wrong. Neither one works. You can't you can't shame people into believing the truth. You could tell people, flat earthers, the earth is round and you could walk them around the equator. And thank you for that, Chris, you dick. And if you're walking them around the equator and you start at one point, walk west through the Pacific Ocean, because this is an imaginary scenario, and you walk all the way around the world and you come up the other side, prove to them that the earth is round, but you're sitting there shaming them the entire time, they will still continue to believe the earth is flat just to A, spite you, B, not have to admit they're wrong, and C, as Peterson liked to put it, hold on, or no, this is the that Notes from the Underground, Dostoevsky. that hold on to the idea that they're an individual, that they have intellectual autonomy and can still believe whatever the fuck they want. It doesn't work.
Well, yeah. Isn't the last presidential election proof of that?
Yes.
I mean, it's pretty much Hillary's strategy was shaming him.
Deplorables.
Yeah. Seemed to work. Good job.
And the right's doing the same thing, right, Snowflake? I mean, it doesn't work. You're not changing minds here. You're creating enemies. You're digging the trenches that they're going to shoot you from. I don't know how to solve it. I don't have answers for that. The only thing that I can think of in the realm of solutions is that you've got to start engaging. If there is a salvation, if there is a path forward out of this, it's going to come from people who, as I said earlier, cut off the gangrene limbs of extremism on the body and start engaging each other in rational conversations, admitting they're wrong, understanding compromise, and trying to find a clean, at least cleaner path forward. That's the only way. I don't know how you create that sort of culture. That's what has to happen. The culture has to be created for that. Other than that, I mean, dude, we may as well create a bunker and wait for those bombs you were talking about earlier to be lobbed over the house, because if we don't figure that out, no.
Well, as fucked up as this is going to sound, it's kind of what I feel like all we can do. It's all we can do is wait until, I mean, look, there's been, we love to say this is the most divided this country's ever been. I would agree as long as they finish that statement in our lifetime, or that I can remember, or that I was aware of. All right, we're not in a literal, the country is ripped in half, civil war, brother versus brother, right, because of where you were born at the moment. Okay, we're not to the point where we were with Vietnam. We're close, we're damn close, but we're not to that point yet. I mean,
well,
it may be bad to us, but everything's perspective.
Two things: the Civil War took decades to turn into the Civil War.
Exactly.
Okay. Vietnam, the Civil War, the one thing that's different now is the internet. Everything is moving exponentially faster now. We're not having to print pamphlets. We're not having to have meetings at Berkeley to organize a march. We're doing it online instantaneously. That's the difference. That's the one thing. We don't have a map here. We don't have a schematic to go by. We don't know how quickly and how divided and how confrontational this is going to be because we've never been here.
And I get that, but the thing with Vietnam that I think a lot of people forget or is lost in history or just not taught in history for whatever reason is that a lot of that opposition to Vietnam was because people were still being drafted.
Sure.
And they had fought a war that we went, what the fuck were we doing in Korea? And now we're in this quagmire in Vietnam. That's technically not a war. It's a policing action. Yet they're taking kids from all the poor neighborhoods and feeding them into this fucking meat grinder. Mm-hmm. And the rich kids get, I'm in the Coast Guard or I'm in the Civil Air Patrol or whatever the fuck.
Or Ted Nugent, they shit themselves and get out of being drafted.
Yeah, say they're gay, whatever. And that's what a lot of that took those two wars and the bullshit surrounding it. Because why were we there? Communism. Well, eventually that wasn't a good enough reason. Right. And so what do? They got rid of the draft. Well, let's see. Now we're going to have a Cold War. Well, once the Cold War was ended, what do we do now? What's our new boogeyman? Terrorism. We're going to fight an idea.
Yeah, the other thing that happened, I think, with Vietnam that maybe people don't have the context on is that those kids who were being drafted were the sons of people who had been drafted and fought in World War II.
Exactly.
And they probably, again, I'm speculating here, but I would assume that they grew up with stories or they grew up with parents with PTSD or parents telling stories about how many friends they lost on Omaha Beach. They had, it was separate, and we don't have that today, but they had at least context for the horrors of war. And they understood completely the difference between World War II and Vietnam. And they did not take kindly to being thrown into that, as you put it, meat grinder. Because I think it was something that was real to them beyond the fact that they were going because they grew up with the horrors of war being shared with them by their parents or uncles or whoever.
Well, I mean, to put a modern pop culture spin on it, I would, just like you said, the Civil War took decades to build up to that point. I would say the change that came about with the ending of the draft, getting out of Vietnam, was a 2-decade process to get to that. Was going through 2 wars where we're going, why the fuck are we here? But then I think we had, like they say in Game of Thrones, winter's coming.
Yeah.
Well, the 80s and the 90s, for the most part, where it was summertime, and then winter showed up on 9/11, 2001. And we ain't been out of it since. And there's no clearing. The clouds aren't clearing as far in any direction as we can look. Because this shit ain't going to fucking end. This goes back to, once again, the lack of knowledge of history. Go look at Eisenhower's last address to the nation. He warned us of exactly this. Perpetual war underneath the military-industrial complex.
What war are we in now, though? How are you applying this now, though?
Afghanistan, the war on terror. We have boots on the ground training rebels because we're doing the same thing that we used to do in the 80s with the Taliban. Oh, well, you're fighting the Russians? We'll train you. We'll supply you. Okay, well, you got the Russians out of Afghanistan. Now here's $5 million after we've dropped literally $1 billion into your country for you to run the Russians out. Here's $5 million to rebuild your country. And then they're like, wait a minute.
What I'm missing is the connection, though, that you're maybe I'm wrong and maybe I'm misunderstanding this, but it seems to me that you were making a connection between Vietnam and, say, Iraq or Afghanistan today. The difference being, the disconnect that I'm seeing, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, is that I don't remember the last time we had reports of people dying in Afghanistan. Well, maybe Afghanistan, but certainly not Iraq. We don't really have a full-fledged active war going on right now as we did probably 5 years ago.
We wage wars in different ways than we did back then. We wage guerrilla warfare that we're never going to hear about in the news.
Well, we've always done that.
Guatemala.
Yeah, go United Fruit.
Post-World War II especially.
Yeah.
Because that's when we found out, this is war? That could propel us to be a world power. Yeah. The war machine? Oh, there's plenty of money to be made off of that.
Yeah, I don't see a difference between the guerrilla warfare and the subterfuge, however you want to look at it, or international global political interference that we're running now between like El Salvador, Nicaragua, Guatemala, particularly Guatemala. I don't see a difference. I don't see how that's either ratcheted up or slowed down. I think that's been a constant since at least since World War II. So I guess I guess I'm not seeing is the difference.
One, we're not drafting people and forcing them to go fight.
Right. That was an actual war where you had body counts on the news every night, and you had friends dying in war. We don't have that today.
2, we have perfected the ability to save lives at the cost of limbs. More people come back injured and fucked up, either mentally or physically, from war these days than they come back in a coffin. That's because, I'm not saying that wasn't that way before, but when you have 50,000 dead in Vietnam and we have, what's the body count stand in Iraq for the U.S.?
Like 6,000, 8,000, something like that.
Exactly. Now look at the wounded numbers.
Yeah.
Now we're talking 5 digits.
What were they in Vietnam?
A lot of those guys died. A lot of those guys didn't survive. That's the problem.
Right. So combine the 2 figures. You see what I'm saying?
No, I got you. It's just we use our military the same as we always have. We just pretty it up and call it a different. We just give it a slant to it. We used to say, we're fighting communism, and it's your duty to go over there and fight for your country. Now it's like, well, we're fighting terrorism, and if you love your country, you'll go fight for your country. And then half these kids ended up in Afghanistan protecting poppy fields. And then, surprise, 18 years later, here we sit with the biggest opioid epidemic we've ever had in this country, and we wonder why.
Can you connect those two?
When 90% of the world's poppy and opium is produced in Afghanistan. It's still there.
Draw me a tangible line between the Afghani poppy fields and Pfizer, doctors prescribing opioids for pain.
90% of the world, the supply in the world that of poppy that is turned into these drugs comes from Afghanistan.
Is that a direct link, though? Is that something that can actually be shown, that there's a link between those poppy fields and Pfizer?
As much as there's a direct link between what we were doing in the 70s and 80s in South America and the influx of cocaine in this country.
Okay.
I mean, I can't name names. I'm not privy to that. But yes, I understand that you can go, well, there's no direct link. Okay, well, theoretical physics is an elephant can dangle off a cliff by a dandelion. That doesn't mean it's fucking true.
Right. Well, there was supposed to be, when we invaded Iraq, we were supposed to get our hands on all the oil. I never saw one piece of evidence. I know I remember the signs when I was in New York City in 2003. No blood
for oil. Yeah.
I don't remember ever seeing any benefit coming to the U.S. from those oil fields in Iraq.
Right.
So it's hard for me. Well, I'm not discounting what you're saying, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but I would love to see the direct line, just something tangible to make the theory seem more factual that the poppy fields are finding their way into Pfizer's hands.
Well, where are they going then?
Probably staying right where they always were. That's what they did with the oil, the black market. I don't know.
I think we always try and look for what's the angle on this. What's the upside? What are they really after? Are they after the oil, or after,
Well, Rich nailed it. It's the military-industrial complex. Rich nailed that right on the head. It's weapons production.
That's what it is. Like, all of that, even if that were true, that's peanuts compared to what they're making off of just war profiteering.
Yeah, how much does a cruise missile cost? You fire one, you need another one.
Guys, there's one thing you're
just
forgetting
like we
here.
privatized it.
No one's going to leave a dollar on the table if there's a dollar to be made. Just because they don't make as much as the military-industrial complex doesn't mean that there's not people sitting at the top of corporations going, how can I exploit this situation to put more money in my pocket?
I just want to see how. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I've not seen anything that says that that's happening, just as I never saw any drop of oil come from Iraq and find its way into Exxon's hands.
But at the same time...
I agree with you, Rich, but I think it's a secondary issue. If you didn't have... If war wasn't so profitable, we wouldn't have so much of it, and these other vultures wouldn't be able to swoop in and take advantage of the situation.
Well, I mean, I'm sitting here, I'm looking at... Hold on. God damn it. United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. Last year's record opium production in Afghanistan threatens sustainable development. Latest survey reveals... et cetera. They go on.
I thought one of the standard lines, though, of one of the campaigns in Afghanistan, at least, was to destroy poppy fields. Now, again, that could be just rhetoric, but I thought that was one of the things that they were trying to achieve or address, was the destruction of opium.
Well, all I can go by on that is people that were there for firsthand accounts, and they were told constantly, these are people that served over there. We're not here to and these are just the boots on the ground, NCOs, enlisted men. This isn't high-level shit. We're not here to take away these people's means to make a living. Now, what they would probably say is, we're over there to keep the fact that you can get opium and poppy wielding and harvested plants over there. We're here to keep it out of the Taliban or any other terrorist organization's hands, so they don't profit off it.
Yeah,
that's what we're here to do.
Maybe that's where I got it from. Yeah.
Meanwhile, what do you think is happening to all that they're just burning fields? That there are going to be people that are sitting there going, do you know how much money we're literally putting a flame to? We could turn this into so many different variants of drugs and flood the market with them. And there's clamoring for them all over Western society. The problem with a lot of this, the opium epidemic here in America, is we're Americans, so we can't, a lot of times, see past our own fucking nose. We think, oh man, we have it bad. This is a problem that's happening all over Western society. This is not just an issue that's happening here in America or in Ohio or in the inner city. This is happening to middle-class people. I mean, when you have drug dealers cutting heroin with fentanyl because it's cheaper than cutting it with baby laxative, what does that tell you?
Yeah.
That tells you that there's a problem. There is way too much fucking product that comes from opium on the market to the point where it's cheaper to use that to cut drugs than it is to use fucking the traditional things to cut drugs. I mean, that was one of the things that made me, for the first couple of years, I started hearing about all these overdoses, and I've buried 6 people in the last 7 years that I knew from some form of opiate overdose, whether it be heroin or prescription pills. And one of the things that made me go, no, that can't be right, is when I heard that, they're dying from the fentanyl they're cutting the heroin with. Right. And in my mind, I'm going, who the fuck cuts heroin with a drug that's more expensive than heroin? Until I went to the motherfuckers on the street, and they're like, that shit I can't take a piss without bumping my nut on some fucking fentanyl. Are you kidding me? It's in patches. It's in pill form. Shit, I had friends that were chewing the patches to get the fucking shit out of it. I mean, literally sticking a patch in their mouth and chewing it. And I was like, it's like that? I had no idea. And I mean, where was this when we were teenagers?
No, I'd never heard of this. Never. The heroin was like something that, Led Zeppelin had fun with.
Yeah, that was Lou Reed and them.
Yeah. This was not a thing when I was a kid. Even when I was in my 20s, I never, ever heard. Early in my 30s. I mean, this is like the last 15 years, 10, 15 years.
Fentanyl wasn't that big. Fentanyl wasn't that big 20 years ago. It was Vicodins.
Right.
Fentanyl makes Vicodins look like Tic Tacs.
I read Burroughs when I was in high school, but that seemed like a whole different world. I didn't think that people still even did heroin at that time.
Yeah, I thought this was something from the 70s.
Yeah, what was the Dandy Warhol song? I never thought you'd be a junkie because heroin was so passé. Like you had groups goofing on it. Like, really, you're a junkie in the 90s? What's wrong with you? Like, seriously? It's like smoking crack in the 2000s. There's meth. What are you doing with crack?
Right.
We've graduated to bigger and better drugs. I mean, it's just I find it hard to believe, and I understand what you're saying, Todd, because I can't give you concrete things. I would have to go back. At one point, I really delved into this subject because it hit close to home with a lot of people in my life, and I really delved into this subject, and I could have given you names, and I could have given you dates, and I could have given you leaks of information that came from this agency or whatever, or Blackwater, et cetera, the private armies that are over there. I could have done all that. Malted hops and bong resin has clouded my mind. I would have to go back and dig through it. But I just, at the same time, I cannot believe these people who will step over a dying person just to make one more fucking red cent are going to leave that much money on the table if they're given the opportunity to pick it up. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's that cynicism that you're talking about. Maybe I need to go crawl in my cave and be a cynic by myself.
Try to climb out of it.
But Rich, when you put it the way that you do, it does kind of point out the major irony there that, we went over to another country because there were terrorists there. We were told there were terrorists there that wanted to kill Americans, right? They already killed Americans, thousands of Americans. And yet we let them continue to produce a drug that would go on to kill many more Americans.
Exactly.
Way more.
Well, I mean, there is an aspect to this, too, that if we're over there, are we trying to be the ONDCP of Afghanistan?
No, yeah, I can appreciate that. If you want to start telling them how they can, what crops they can grow and who they can sell it to, well, then you're essentially just literally taking over the country, right?
Shit, man, we can't even get our own war on drugs under control. How are we supposed to do that in some other country?
But see, let's be honest. Do you really think they want it under control, or they just want controlled chaos, just enough so we can keep filling these for-profit prisons, so we can keep have an excuse to militarize the police? I mean,
I don't disagree with any of that. I don't disagree with any of that.
I mean,
we're not putting Afghani poppy growers in prison. They're not a revenue source for us.
No, but it's not that hard to walk up and say, hey, guess what? You're going to give us our cut, and we're going to let you do this. And by the way, for every bit that hits the black market, you're going to sell a little bit more to the legitimate market, and we're going to go ahead and send that to Pfizer to work on a new version of a divorce drug.
To a degree, what you're saying makes a whole lot of sense. It does. I'm not saying, again, I think I said it 4 times. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I would love to see something beyond the speculation. I'd love to see some dots connected so we could see that.
Well, I mean, I can start digging up stuff again and sending it to you, because it really what it is it's nothing really different than what happened with cocaine and the whole cocaine cowboys and the all that crap. It's different players in a different part of the world, and they found a way to hide it better than they've ever done.
Explain this to me. If you're going to use the Pablo Escobar example down in Colombia, why are coca fields being burnt? Why is Pablo Escobar dead?
That, to be honest with you, I don't know enough about the subject. I know that he was a walking contradiction in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. As horrible as a person he was also his country's biggest, once again, malted hops and bong. Thank you. Yeah. Apparently that cocaine-induced stroke I had in my 30s is starting to affect my memory. But no, I can't give you all the details, and that's where I have to walk up to the line and go, I can't do it. And if any further is speculation, and it's not right when you're going, I want you to connect dots. I can't do it at this point in time.
Right. I'm just what I'm saying. You made a comparison between cocaine and heroin in Afghanistan. You drew a direct parallel there. So
what I meant was, as far as the U.S.'s involvement in getting those drugs where they want them to go. Maybe I didn't make myself clear. Maybe that point is still obtuse. I don't know. But that's what I was saying. I mean, does anyone here have any doubt that the CIA was running drugs at one point out of South America into our own country? I mean, honestly, with all the stuff that's out there with the Freedom of Information Act, all the leaks that have happened over the last 30 decades, or 33 decades.
You're not wrong, though. But again, what I'm saying is that something happened at some point where the CIA started going down there and burning coca fields. I mean, it's a big controversy. The people are still pissed off about that down in Colombia. I heard it firsthand. The CIA came down here and started burning our crops. So I'm not saying that didn't happen, but if something changed at some point, at least in South America, so why would they then apply that same model, I guess, in Afghanistan? If you're going to go down there and you're going to put forth all the effort to kill Escobar, you're going to put forth all of the effort to burn coca fields to stop the influx of cocaine, or at least the out-of-control influx of cocaine. Maybe that's the key. Maybe he was making too much money, they weren't. I don't know.
I mean, isn't that the
maybe that's where the drug companies come in. They have lobbyists. They can say, hey, maybe just leave the poppy fields alone. We have use for this.
Well, I mean, isn't that ultimately one of the things that happened with Frank Lucas? You know, he went to the source himself over in Vietnam, brought the shit in himself. He bypassed how the mafia was doing it, how other organized crime people were doing it. And so not only did he have a target on his back from the American government, but he had a target on his back from people who had a vested interest in taking his black ass out.
Right.
Because how dare this moolie come in and take a cut of my shit?
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things, if you know the story of Frank Lucas, a lot of it was the reason he got away with it so long is because they couldn't believe that a quote unquote street thug was running the shit he was running. They thought they were looking for some Italian guy somewhere. Meanwhile, the mafia at that point had been like, hey, look, motherfuckers with the mandatory minimums in 20 years, you get caught in the RICO Act, leave that shit alone. Because one person goes down and half a family ends up in prison. I mean, it was if you've read Goodfellas, if you've read a lot of Nicholas Pileggi, that is not bullshit. There was like death sentences. You get caught doing this shit, we will kill you. The feds are the least of your concern.
Right.
And the feds were still operating on the outdated model that it was the mafia moving this shit in. I mean, that's the thing. It's you find new and better ways to work around the law, and the law has to catch up. And my thing is, I don't have much faith in the fact that a lot of people who work in law enforcement, maybe not a lot, but a good number of people who work in law enforcement, number of people who are high up in government organizations are just criminals with badges.
Yeah.
They just found a way to legitimize their antisocial behavior because they hide behind a badge and do it.
No, they're politicians. Same thing.
Exactly. I mean, like I said, we are in the age of no-knock warrants where they kick open a door and they just start shooting.
Well, yeah.
I mean, you know, you can have a fucking Pomeranian and they're going to smear that across the nearest wall with a scatter rifle.
Radley Balko has a seminal book that if right up your alley, I know you'll love this book, Rich. It's called Rise of the Warrior Cop, and it's all about that. Nixon's war on drugs, the rise of the SWAT teams, paramilitary, local police forces, little tiny towns in West Michigan basically getting tanks.
Yeah, Westland has one. Westland has an APC. What the fuck does Westland need an APC for?
Well, they're surplus. It's the military-industrial complex applied.
In case Dearborn gets sassy.
They're gonna raid the beaches of Dearborn Heights.
You want to talk logic? Why not apply the military-industrial complex to local law enforcement? Get around Posse Comitatus with where you can quarter the military, just calling it law enforcement.
Oh, absolutely. I have a friend who's a police officer, and he shared a meme that I had to bite my tongue to save a friendship of 20 plus years, because it said, why do we need, and then it showed SWAT gear and riot gear. And then it showed people throwing bottles and rocks at the police.
Right.
That's why you need a tank because someone's throwing I'm sorry, what are you, the IDF? Are you afraid a rock's going to fuck you up when you were sitting there in body armor? When you're firing bullets in the crowds and they're throwing rocks and bottles?
Yeah.
You need that? Really? I mean, and I'm just thinking, I just wanted to type 2 words, Kent State, and leave it at that and just watch the shitstorm start. But I didn't want to lose that friendship. Because I know what once again, I can see both sides. I know what he's talking about. He worked in a bad area. He buried 3 of his fellow police officers in the span of a couple of years. So he said, I can't do this anymore. And he went to a very much more, I'm not going to say Mayberry, but closer to Mayberry than New Jack City. Let's put it that way. All right. And that's where he went, and that's where he works now. All right. So from his point of view, he's trying to explain what he goes through. But at the same time, one of the things he's told me for years and years is at the end of the day, our job is just to get home. I said that 4 years ago on this show, and Aaron goes, that's bullshit. And it kind of took me aback. I said, what do you mean? He goes, that's not their job. Their job is to protect and serve. Their job is not to go home at any cost, including the citizens they're protecting and serving's rights and lives.
Yeah.
And then still stand by that.
I agree with that.
And you absolutely made me rethink his statement. And I'm like, that's one of those things. When I see him and we're face to face talking, that way it's not over the internet, because we all know how that goes, I might bring up to him. But I mean, I don't think you were on the show when that guy in Arizona got shot in that hotel, and the cop was telling him to crawl towards him and get up on his knees and get down, and you do that again, I'm gonna kill you. There's pictures of that cop sitting there in full-on body armor, police department body armor, with the fucking Punisher symbol spray painted on it. That's not a person we need to be a police officer. You want to be a fucking murderer like that? Because that's basically what you want to be. Go join the military. Go join Blackwater.
You're a mercenary at that point.
Exactly. You're not a police officer. You damn sure aren't a peace officer. I mean, and once again, you look at how all this stuff is connected. We use the drug war as an excuse to fill up the prisons. We turn the prisons from private to for-profit. They now run at anywhere between 96 and 98% capacity at any moment. And one fed into the other, which fed into the other, which fed into the other. And then you get inside the prisons and you see prisoners making stuff for American companies for 12 cents an hour. And these companies turn around and selling it for hundreds of dollars. Something that cost them literally $5, $6 to produce. And you just see all the, I see all this and I go, this is what I worry about more than people's pronouns. I'm sorry someone mislabeled you because you have a full beard and you want to be called a female. Okay. But is that, in the grand scheme of things, is this really what we're worried about? No. Most people are not assholes to the point where if you go, hey, sir, excuse me, I'm a female. Okay, my bad, ma'am. End of story. There's no need to march. There's no need for Antifa to get out there and start shoving garbage cans back and forth.
Well, you jump in my face with faux offense. I'll probably call you a man out of spite. At that
yes, that's the problem. You have people who think they're fighting some sort of holy war almost.
Right.
And it's like there are bigger and more important battles to be fought in this country before it gets too far out of hand. And I'm afraid we are too far out of hand. Our government is completely out of pocket. Completely. They do whatever they want with impunity. every once in a while, when someone sticks their hand in the wrong person's pocket, we send them to prison. That's really the biggest crime you can do once you reach a certain level of success in this country, is to take from the wrong person. Or, not pay your taxes.
Right.
Get caught not paying them. Then we'll throw your ass in prison too. I mean, think about it. We've had conversations like this years ago about how these CEOs who run companies into the ground over and over again, they never pay a price for it. They continue to fail up.
Or become president.
Exactly. There you go. Chris, you'll get this one. Here we go. 2024. Dave Brandon for president, Republican Party.
There you go. Yeah.
Domino's.
Ran Domino's, Michigan, and Toys R Us into the ground.
Yep, but he'll be a great president, won't he? Because we need a businessman in there. Sorry, this is like when it comes to the prison system, the treatment of prisoners in this country. When it comes to the reason we imprison people in this country, this is something that
You're not ever going to get an argument out of me as far as that goes.
I understand, but a lot of people are like, why are you talking about it? You can't do anything about it. All right, well, then why are we talking about any of this shit? Because you can't really do anything about any of this shit if that's your attitude.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you. I'm just saying,
No, I know what you mean. So what do we do about it?
We can't do anything about Jamie Foxx handing out mushroom stamps, but we still talk about that.
So at least some humor from the Me Too movement.
So we now know how big of a codpiece his spawn has to have. Apparently, one big enough to slap a chick in the face with his limp dick.
Can I tell you guys a
Same way you will about Jamie Foxx. Like, you got to admit he's talented. So if he's going to abuse somebody, it's still going to be funny.
I mean, how much abuse is it?
Look up to the man.
How much abuse is it to have your face close enough to that cock? What did he do? Is he like a cock ninja? He can whip that shit out without anybody seeing it and get it close enough to smack you in the face, or is it big enough where he's doing it from across the room?
Well, no, that's kind of the fishiness of this story. There apparently was already some
activity,
contact going on.
Wait a minute.
So the cock was out for other reasons, and he was just like, while it's out, I'm going to slap you with it.
Well, she apparently, in
the
middle of it, decided she wasn't into it, so he hit her with his dick. That's the story.
Oh, God.
Why are you laughing?
You remember Warren, right, Chris?
Yes.
Yeah. I have really quick story just to give you an idea where we are. And this has happened in the last couple of years, okay? When I was at the station here in town, probably 2002, I had a video camera, brand new video camera. I took it everywhere and I started filming stuff. And I was taking it around the radio station, filming our overnight guy, just to kind of, almost like taking pictures, right? But with a video camera, before phones and all that shit. And we had a girl on her first gig at a radio station. She was interning. She was learning how to run the board and all that. And she was always in the studio after I got off the air at midnight. She'd come in and she'd sit in with this guy and kind of run the board and try to learn all the ins and outs of doing a live show. And while I had the camera out, the guy from the Top 40 station next door comes over in the studio and starts talking about his cock. I got a huge cock. I mean a rooster, not my dick. Anyway.
Was that Nick?
No. It was after Nick. This was Ray.
Gotcha.
And anyway, the conversation keeps going and going and going. And this chick had a really great sense of humor. I mean, you could talk to her like a dude, right? She was awesome. And she's like sitting there. I think she said something like, "You ever give anyone a mushroom stamp?" And Ray's like, "No, what's that?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's where you take your junk or you take your dick and you smack it on a chick's face and you leave a mushroom stamp." And he's like, yeah, you want me to give you a mushroom stamp, blah, blah, blah. I have all this on tape. Okay, I have it on video. It's funny as hell. It's hilarious. It's like a little time capsule of live radio in the early 2000s, right? I used to post it every now and then to my radio friends. It's on YouTube, doesn't have a link or anything. Nobody can see it unless I send the link to people. I almost did that for this dude's birthday last week, and I got to thinking to myself, holy shit. Mm-hmm. That could be construed because she was not in a position of power, and the other two were, as harassment. That's how things have changed. I had no qualms about posting that thing for the last 10 years, up until last week. And now it's like, I feel like I have to keep that thing under wraps because, oh my God, somebody could take this the wrong way. Both of those other two guys are working still. If somebody got their hands on it, they could be out of a job.
Yeah, it's not even worth risking it.
No.
Who knows what's going to set somebody off?
Nobody was offended. Nobody was being harassed. It was just a nasty-ass conversation. But if you want to look at it through that agenda prism, you could probably twist it that way. It's pathetic.
One of the things I've been told by some friends of mine and a few fellow coworkers is if there's any back and forth with a coworker of the opposite sex or the same sex if they're gay, and it might get a little blue, that they don't erase those conversations anymore. And I'm like, so is this to protect you? And most of the time it's like, if I have a friend, he's pretty tight with a female he works with. She sent him an off-colored meme. He sent her one. Now it's just, and I mean, there's no one's claiming harassment on either side.
Right.
But he's like, I'm not erasing that because she sent it first. I have a digital record that can be backed up by the phone company and their records that this was started on her end. And at no point did she say that offended me. I feel assaulted or whatever. Stop, any of that.
Right.
Don't send me anything else. And I'm like, that's where we're at. And, the sad part is that is exactly where we're at. That is exactly where we're at. We're at the point to where if a female who's intoxicated offers herself up to me and I say no, and she starts making some weird, noises, I'm hitting record on my phone going, that's fucked up. I mean, think about that.
Yeah, but then you're the creep who recorded all of his sexual activity.
No, I'm not talking about sexual activity. I'm talking about if someone who is intoxicated and who cannot legally give consent offers it up to another person, and that person says no, and then the person who offered it up gets offended, and that person who said no starts recording because you're not going to accuse me of some shit that didn't happen, then as fucked up as that is, I mean, let's be honest. Growing up, we've all been rebuked. We've all been told by a chick, no, I don't think so. Sorry. I don't, you got your vibes crossed or something. It's the end of it. It's the end of it. No one needs to record anything. No one needs to take notes. We don't need to have, a stenographer in the corner. Nowadays, I feel like, yeah, you kind of do. I really do. I would hate to be a teenager, young 20-something these days. Because unless someone does go above and beyond to cover their ass in these ways that we would consider just silly 10, 15 years ago, you leave yourself open for a whole lot of bullshit.
Yeah. Well, Rich, do you remember that we watched that the special on Netflix? What was it? The Seth Rogen one.
Oh yeah, the comedy for Alzheimer's research. I can't remember the exact name.
And there's a little bit.
Was that awful? Because I've heard like zero word of mouth on that, and it's been on Netflix for a while.
It has some parts are awful. Like whoever that chick was that was their closer that just went up and told the story about how she met Beyonce. It was like horrible. There was moments like that, but there are some really good bits in there.
Yeah.
And one of them's from Michael Che. Is that his name? The guy he's now the host of
Daily Show.
Doing the
Weekend Update. Weekend Update.
Yes, thank you. I was getting them confused. So he's on Weekend Update, right? And he tells the story about going to a bar and having this gay guy hit on him and buying him drinks. And he's accepting the drinks. And the bartender's like, that guy is buying you drinks because he wants you to fuck him. And Michael Che's like, I get that. I totally understand that. And I know that I'm not going to fuck him. So I'm going to continue to drink his drinks.
I'm doing what most of the women in this bar are doing.
Right. He never gets into that. He never mentions the woman's perspective, but everybody knows what the story is really about, I think. And he's like, this is a challenge, that he thinks that he can get enough drinks into me that I'm going to turn gay, and I think that can't happen. Also, one of the punchlines is that if there is a number of drinks that will make him gay, he wants to know exactly what it is so he can go to the bar and be like, give me 8 drinks and no more.
Because the line is 6, right?
But again, he doesn't get into what women might go through, and there is a different dynamic there of sometimes there's an issue of fear because it's just, this guy is intimidating because he could physically overpower you. So there's other factors that come into it for women, I'm sure. But I think from most modern women's perspective, that was harassment. And oh my gosh, I can't believe that this guy was trying to get me drunk so he could fuck me. And most men are probably thinking, I can't believe that you thought that any guy that was buying you drinks in the bar didn't want to fuck you.
Yeah.
Well, that's that not narcissistic isn't the right term. It's that
self-absorbed.
It's kind of like, well, of course they want to buy me drinks because I'm such a great person to be around, and I tell such funny stories, and it's like,
no, we don't even hear
intellectually dishonest and denying biology.
I never heard half the words coming out of your mouth. I just picked up cues and when to laugh.
Patrice O'Neill said it best. He goes, you know what I've never heard when there's a bunch of guys out at the bar? You know what would make this party better? If my girl was here. She is funny as a motherfucker. She tells great stories, can shoot pool, is a great wingman. No, you never hear that, period.
No.
And it's like, that's the thing. Like, doing the show with Rye and just being friends with him for as long as I have has really opened my eyes to how much of this bullshit is in the gay community. Because it's interesting, because the gay community, you don't have the automatic victim because of someone's gender. Like if you roll up into a scene and there's a guy standing there and a girl crying, acting like she's terrified, you automatically know who the victim is. Period. I mean, that's 90% of people are going to walk up and go, "What did you do to her?" That's just how the world is. You walk up and 2 guys are sitting there, and you can tell they've been going at it. It's not quite as easy. So there's a lot of the, well, I gave consent, but then the next day I regretted it, and this and that. And you see what really happens when you take the automatic victim role out of the situation. You get people who go, well, what proof do you have?
Mm-hmm.
You're making the accusation. The burden of proof lies with you.
Right.
It is not my job to prove I am innocent. It is your job to prove I am guilty.
Right. There's also a lot more dissecting of like what led up to this point. What were you wearing? Where were you going? How were you behaving? What is your behavior normally? Do you sleep around a lot?
Mm-hmm.
All these things can be used to discredit a person and go, well, look, even if it was rape, you put yourself in that situation.
Once again, to me, maybe to some people that matters. And to the law, if you go by the letter of the law, it does not matter how bad of a situation a person put themselves. No one deserves to be raped. And I mean, that should go without having to be said. But in today's world, you can't. You have to clarify everything. Mm-hmm. So let's clarify that. But at the same time, it's just the fact that they will go, what proof do you have? They will question the story. Whereas when you have the automatic role of I am a victim simply because I'm a female and he's bigger than me and he can intimidate me.
Well, it's the abandonment of the rule of law. Innocent until proven guilty. When you have an automatic victim, you're guilty until proven. You have to prove you didn't do something in that case. And I got to tell you, man, I'm getting old, and I'm afraid that if we were to retroactively prosecute and accuse everybody of this crime or this misdeed, the entire decade almost of the 80s and 90s would be in jail or unhirable at this point.
Oh, shit. You keep going back farther.
Yeah.
I told you off air about the time that I assaulted my friend once on tequila.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there is an element to that. When I was growing up, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just saying this is how it was, all right? There was an element of how the hell did you get yourself put in that position? There was an element of personal responsibility from a female standpoint as well. If you're drunk and you wind up having sex with someone, how did you put yourself in that situation where you lost control of yourself? There is an element of personal responsibility there. And it's completely devoid now. It's like the old drunk driving thing. I didn't really do it. Right. I'm not responsible for my actions because I was drunk. So, you go off and kill a family full of kids because you're driving the car. Well, the alcohol made you do it, right?
Well, it said it. And I know with this example,
goes to jail forever.
Yeah.
I know with this example, I am treading on very sketchy ground here. But I mean, the most recent example with Bill Cosby. It's what do you think he wanted? You go up to anybody's room at 2 a.m. What do you think is going to happen?
It's not applicable because there's a drug involved that they didn't know about. If you're willingly intoxicating yourself, there's a difference. He used a weapon.
No, you can go up to Bill Cosby's room and want to fuck him, and if you get drugged and he then has sex with you, that's still rape.
Yeah.
No, not disputing that, but we're talking about putting yourself in a situation. You go up to any guy's room at 2 a.m.
Yeah, what are you asking to be drugged? You're asking to be drugged if you go up to a guy's room at 2 a.m.
No, now you're conflating. No, wait a minute.
No, I'm talking about situational awareness.
What?
Chris.
You just picked a bad example, man. Pick somebody else. Because I'm with you.
Mike Tyson.
It's not him.
I qualified myself at the beginning. It wasn't a great example.
Chris, Mike Tyson, the beauty pageant that he raped according to the law. He invited her up to his room, like 3 a.m. or whatever.
He raped a whole beauty pageant?
Iron Mike.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
Sorry, you said... you...
Must have been literal, huh?
Did you mean like a beauty pageant winner?
The beauty pageant contestant that he invited up to his room at like 3, 4 a.m. and raped according to his conviction. Now, here's where we get into intellectual dishonesty. Okay. Oh, well, you mean he wasn't interested in my mind at 3:30 in the morning? He didn't want to hear my thoughts on, the last episode of MASH? Why not? That's that toxic masculinity. He wants me for sex. Oh, that's disgusting. Really? If that's disgusting, is it any more disgusting than a woman putting on an outfit with half her titties hanging out, doing up her makeup, going to a bar, and sitting there and turning guys away until one she finds attractive comes up and offers to buy her a drink?
Yeah.
To me, it comes...
Go ahead. Sorry.
You can't have these conversations anymore because this Me Too third wave feminism has removed all responsibility from them.
Exactly. Yeah.
And has allowed them, it has infanticized them. It has made them fucking children incapable of doing anything. It has done the exact opposite of empowering them.
That's exactly right. I mean, you want these super women. They want to be seen as the superior gender, right? But they can't take personal responsibility for themselves and their own actions and putting themselves in situations when they know better. You're supposed to treat the superior gender like an infant, protecting them from every possible scenario to where they don't have any personal responsibility for where they are and what they're doing, how drunk they're getting, whatever. They don't have that sort of accountability. How are you the superior gender, ladies, if you can't even take care of yourself? If you've got to contract that out? How are you superior? Help me out here.
Here's what I don't understand. It's not that hard. It's just, it would take true cohesion and unity with women. Just fucking no. The pussy supply is cut off until we get every fucking demand we want.
Well, that takes away their biggest weapon.
But that's what I'm saying. What is it? That Spike Lee movie that just happened, Chirac. Apparently, that was I did not see it. I'm just going by a few reviews I've heard and articles I read. That was the premise of the movie, is that to stop the violence in Chicago, women were like loving full-on embargo. You ain't getting shit, nothing until the violence stops. That was the premise of the movie.
You think that's going to make people be less aggressive?
Good for the hooker business.
But do you see what I'm saying? I mean, this isn't an idea that's not being, foisted into the pop culture mindset. And it's not an idea that is far from what you hear on the internet, in certain corners of the internet, with the more radical feminist. Hey, men only want one thing, take that one thing away from them, and they're absolutely useless. They just turn into slaves that'll do whatever we tell them. And you just have to ration out the pussy smartly. Now think about that. Think how callous, think how cold and calculated that statement is. And reverse the sexes. And I don't know any woman that would be cool with that. Well, all you got to do to control a woman is ration out the money, because that's all they give a shit about. So you make the bitch your slave, and then you just pay her enough just to keep her on the hook. That's what pimps do. Okay? And rightfully so, they're fucking enraged if they heard that. But, I mean, it's not that it's
over dick and went right to money.
I mean, honestly, what do you want me to say? I mean, it's like a woman goes, I haven't had any in such a long time. Why? That's my question. Why?
That's true. All you have to do is show interest if you're a woman. Go to a bar at 1:30. Go, hey, I would like some dick. You get one of those take a number things from the get one of those take a number things from the deli.
And people have their resumes out for you.
I mean, and maybe the currency isn't necessarily money itself, literally, currency. Maybe it's attention. Maybe it's validation. Maybe it's, whatever it is, whatever they're seeking is, you have the means to get it. Yeah. And then you want to act like, well, none of this, I'm not responsible for any of this. This is all the patriarchy. This is all men's fault. This is all this and this. Yeah. Really? Yeah. What is any species soul? What is any species prime drive to keep the species going? To fucking keep the species going. All right. Period. Yeah, I know that we've evolved beyond that. We're not the Neanderthals and run around in the Serengeti somewhere, knocking women out and dragging them from cave to cave. Okay, I understand all that, but that still is a very deeply embedded instinctual drive in both sexes. And if you're a woman and you know that if you get pregnant and you chose the wrong man to impregnate you, that you're going to be left on your own to raise that child, what are you looking for then? Not only are you looking for a good man to procreate with, you're looking for a man who can provide.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's one little problem, though. I don't know if it's a problem, but the last 15 years, it adds at least a wrinkle to the theory that, withholding pussy is going to be the ultimate weapon, and that's porn. Because there are a lot of relationships and a lot of marriages that have been destroyed because their sex lives dry up. And this is from the female perspective, because their men are addicted to internet porn. There's an outlet.
Well, that's how come you have such hatred for porn from certain groups of women, because you're taking my power away from me.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
That's what I'm saying, though. That's the one thing where the Spike Lee movie, I think it was Spike Lee, you said.
Yeah.
That's the thing that needs to be taken into account, because we have access. We can take care of ourselves. You have your dildos. We have you porn.
Oh, I mean, I
don't know. I think there's two different types of guys on that. One can see porn as a substitute. The other can see it as just an additive.
I'm just saying that there have been a lot of studies done where men will choose porn over the real thing in a lot of instances. And it's not just like a couple of people, because they can visualize exactly what they want and do it differently based on what they want on any particular day. And it causes a lot of problems in marriages.
Absolutely.
So keep that in mind, ladies. You're semi-replaceable in that aspect.
And I mean, here's the thing that's fucked up. If you want crazy, freaky, embarrass your parents, $2 hooker sex, then you got to go out and find yourself a partner who wants that too. The problem is too many people settle.
And we'll do it for $2.
Too many people will do it for free in a relationship. Well, as free as
relationship? Oh,
yeah. I'm talking about in a relationship.
Well, this is you're You're running down a really a wide avenue and boulevard here, because they settle for a lot more than just that.
No. What I'm talking about is settling is they're afraid to be alone.
Yeah.
They can't be alone. It's a pathological need to be in a relationship. And I have friends that are like that. The minute they get single, they have one mission: find a woman to get into a relationship with. And they fucking ignore every fucking red flag that bitch runs up the pole. Mm-hmm. And then they disappear because she doesn't like your friends and you can't hang out with her friends. And then his brother calls and goes, have you heard from him? Because none of my family has, but he spends every holiday with her family. All of her friends are now his friends. And then every once in a while, she lets him off the plantation, and he comes and visits his buddies. And I'm an asshole. I'm one of those guys that go, what are you doing here? I'm not talking teenagers, your first major relationship, because no one knows what the fuck you're doing. You're flying blind. Once you get some experience under your belt, you have no excuse. Period. If you get burned the same way in every relationship you get in, what is the common thread in that relationship? You're the problem. And that's what I will tell my friends. That's why I have friends that I no longer talk to when their marriage is dissolved, because I'm not going to be an emotional tampon and listen to, I didn't see all this. We told you how she was. We pointed out examples. Motherfucker, we gave a PowerPoint presentation at one point, and you told us to fuck off. You're in love. Where's that love got you? Sitting here crying on my fucking shoulder, 3:30 in the fucking morning. I got to go to work the next day. Get your drunk ass out of my house. Period. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Those are the people that settle. And I mean, for those people, I doubt sex is even high up on the scale of shit they need to be in a relationship. That's just, they can't be alone. It's that word I hate, Aaron, that we talked about the other day, codependency. Got to be with somebody. I have to. I cannot be alone. And I just don't understand that, because if you're going to be miserable in the long run, what good does that little dopamine hit at the beginning of the relationship? What good is it? It's not going to last. We all know the honeymoon phase. It's great. You can't keep your hands off each other. You're fucking in public. You're getting roadhead. You're eating her ass at the fucking Lions game. Whatever the fuck. But that
Who the fuck was
away.
eating ass at the Lions game?
Oh, there's pictures of it. I'll send you one.
Jesus Christ. Team's that bad? Jesus, Stafford. Go be a Packer. Jesus.
But no, I mean, we
gotta wrap this one up pretty soon, but I wanted to share this one with you before we go. There's a story about that I read earlier about how mammals that live in areas inhabited by humans animals that aren't normally nocturnal in nature are becoming nocturnal just to avoid us. And of course, all the responses on Twitter were like, same, me too. I feel the same way.
You just described my life.
Yeah.
There's a reason I work second shift. And it's funny because I have a friend who just got hired at a job that has they're open 24/7, and he's like, I volunteered for the midnight shift. Less people to deal with. I'm like, damn, bro. And I wish we're some cynical bastards in Todd's mind.
Well, wait a minute. This is a real thing? Somebody ate ass at a Lions game?
Yes. You think I made this shit up?
Yeah, I did, actually. Right up your alley. I mean, I wouldn't, spontaneously come up with eating ass at a Lions game,
like
for an example.
Natural richism.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It just flows out.
Sick bastard. Yeah. See, this is why Anna doesn't
sports podcasts were rich for a while. This is no surprise to me.
Oh, boy.
Oh, God.
One pride, right? One pride.
Wrote the story. I've pointed out that the anus isn't for me. You've talked about this before? This is a common subject in the sports column?
Apparently. Total frat move.
When the Lions come up, it comes up, probably once a year.
Wow.
Yeah, usually during a losing streak. They're like, this is the only way the fans can entertain themselves.
Hell yeah. Why would you buy a ticket to go to a stadium to eat ass? Why would you pay that? Do it on you could do that on the Lodge Freeway, for fuck's sakes, and not spend a dime. That'd be more interesting to watch if you're going to tape it.
They're in the fucking parking lot.
Hey, maybe they wanted to get drunk outside first, Todd. Did you ever think of that?
No.
Todd, I noticed Todd still hasn't clicked on the link.
No, he hasn't, and he's not gonna. I don't need to see that. I have a vivid, active imagination. I do not need the imagery to go along with it. Thanks.
I think that maybe this other dude just lost a bet.
Other dude. That's what I love. You assume they're both guys.
Oh, they aren't?
I don't know. I don't think they ever figured it out.
Chick.
It's a Lions fan. It could be either. Who knows at this point, man?
What kind of dude makes that bet? Oh, I'll tell you what. Yeah, if this light's green when we turn the corner, I'll lick your butthole.
You don't know what his tongue's doing. The bet could have been that you have to deeply inhale my fart.
Again, who makes that wager?
Straight from my asshole to your nose.
You gotta get first huff.
I think that's a more reasonable. I think I know guys that would have made that bet with each other.
With the pants down and the shirt hiked up in the back?
Nope.
Yeah.
The article does call the recipient a her.
Still could have been a bet. Though.
This is
just say it.
See, now you just got me thinking completely different about this picture, because now I'm thinking about a Drew and Mike bit where he was like, "You got fart air on your face, and you dig it." But I do.
This could be anything, you know. Maybe she was bit by a rattlesnake.
I do love
in Detroit.
19 movies.
Yes. Detroit rattlesnakes.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
I do love the last line of the article.
Has monkeys.
There's like 1, 2, 3. There's like there's like 4 or 5 paragraphs, and then the last line is just, "I'll never understand why eating ass is a thing," and it's just the end of the article. Oh God. Oh.
Can we name the episode "I'll Never Know Why Eating Ass Is a Thing"?
Let's just name the episode. We're on the same wavelength, Todd.
Why is eating ass a thing? Question mark.
I was going to suggest that we change our podcast name to "This Is Where We're At Now."
Actually, it's not a bad idea. It's called The Descent.
Oh, Christ.
Yeah.
Oh, well, before we start any other podcast, we'd like to thank you for listening to this podcast. We are on the Twitter at unregimentedpod. You can email us unregimented@christophermedia.net. And just go to christophermedia.net, check out all the other podcasts. Rich, I believe you told me, recording of one of your episodes of Nighttime Discussions, there was a tarp involved? Was that not hyperbole?
A tarp?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, in one of the discussions we had, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a fisting event, and apparently the room that they held the event looked like something from a Dexter kill room. Oh. Everything was just covered in plastic just in case. And I was like, see, I would walk in that room and not think about getting fisted. I would think I'm getting like assassinated by the mafia.
Just in case what? Come on.
Oh, you know what case? In case he pulls his fist out of some guy's ass and Santorum goes all over the place.
I just wanted you to say it. Just wanted you to say it.
Yeah, but doesn't having a tarp kind of ruin the spontaneity of everything?
Oh, apparently there's a whole lot of preparation in that. It's like, fasting, and there's a bit of stretching involved beforehand. And I was like, so you don't pull something?
Jesus Christ. What kind of stretching?
Doctor, you can't eat for 12 hours before?
What kind of apparatus is used in the stretching? Come on.
It depends.
On what?
The story depends on how deep you want to go. If you want to go shoulder deep, I guess you're going to need a speculum of some sort, but I guess the rest of it's just fingers.
Wow.
Just, what do you call it? A goatsy spread.
Fisting calisthenics.
That old internet meme where the guy's pulling his asshole open and just bent over and took a picture.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Nighttime discussion.
We were supposed to just say goodbye.
Look, if people lasted this long, they need it.
So on that note, we'll just see you next week.
If you like this show, please tell a friend. Please follow us on Twitter and like and share us on Facebook by searching for Christopher Media. You can subscribe to all ChristopherMedia.net shows for free on ChristopherMedia.net. Please make sure to rate and comment on all your favorite Christopher Media shows. Thank you in advance for supporting Christopher Media by clicking on the PayPal button and by clicking through to all the sponsors who support ChristopherMedia.net. Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net, and thank you for listening. Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.
Electrical pros, the Home Depot can help you put safety first with a 4-pack of Kidde FireX hardwire smoke detectors for just $39.97. Order these interconnected smoke alarms online and you put safety first. And that's followed by $10 savings on each pack, free delivery, and peace of mind knowing you got the right brand for fire safety. See? Put safety first and everything else follows when you order a 4-pack of Kidde smoke detectors for just $39.97. Only at the Home Depot. How doers get more done. U.S. only.